Hello. Welcome to the Xirtus.
Synctank.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
Hey.
Yeah, it's a crazy day. It just seems like things get worse all the time. I don't know, like at a certain point, I'm not sure whether to like even indulge in my emotions. I just watched Hachiko the other day to get through it, so I'm pretty much like already like flushed out. But today's another one. It's another one of those days.
Are you
It's
back
like
in the States?
No. Thank
Maybe
God.
that's the problem. You need to come back. You need to come back home and.
You
and
think
you'll-
like if
you'll be
I'm
all
you think
over
I'm
again.
there, they're gonna turn off the violence? I don't think that's how that works,
You're
man.
like
I think it's
Batman,
like
you gotta come back.
You got to come
yeah,
back,
like
man.
if they
Yeah.
keep partying in the neighborhood, then like you move out of the neighborhood. I feel like I don't know, maybe I'm missing something here, but yeah, okay. So let's start with the Alex Jones post, I guess, because that seems like a nice one. It's nice that Alex Jones bringing it up. Let me find it here. It was an active shooting. Terror attack just took place at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Grand Blanc, Michigan. The terrorist rammed his truck through the front of the large church, then began shooting attendees and set the church on fire. I would give it a 98% probability that this is an Islamist or Antifa, Trantifa affiliated nut job. Although
with an Iraq license plate, supposedly.
Yeah, so you look at it and it's this
Today?
like it's one of the most. This just happened an hour ago or something. Yeah, like this was really recently because I don't know what time it is over there. It's 9 p.m. here, which I think it's like what is that like 1 or something in the Midwest? Like it's like noon in California right now, right? So like this is Sunday. This is happening now. You know, this is crazy, and that's how I felt with Charlie Kirk because like as I was starting the Charlie Kirk show. The APM show a couple weeks ago, Charlie Kirk got shot right as the show was beginning. And I was just like, oh man, I'm supposed to be interviewing the first hacker who was ever arrested right now to talk about how he was, exploited by the military and the intelligence agencies and used for psychological operations and conditioning and narrative shaping. But I'm busy with this other narrative shape that's happening right now. And that one was fun because you still get people saying, the left keeps saying the right did it. The right keeps saying the left did it. Both
People
the left
need to
and the
let
right
the
media.
freaking dust settle. Sorry for interrupting, but people need to just
No, go for it.
take a breath, let the thing unfold a little bit before we start screaming who done it. I mean, Knives Out would have been a weird movie if they just decided at the very beginning clearly
It was a guy adjusting his shirt. He did it.
I don't know.
I mean, it's like there are 4 or 5 companies that make media, just like there are 4 or 5 companies in the Alien series with Weyland Yutani. There's like corporations run the world, and it's like the left and the right are 2 demographics, but they're the same household. At this point, you've got the same top controlling both the left and the right, so that all of the left and the right at the bottom, the top control the bottom's media source. that seems what it is. So regardless,
before the show
just
started,
saying, the top are telling you, yeah.
I told Andreas, like, I just look at, he's asking me, did I hear the news? I'm like, dude, I go to look at the comments. I don't know about Alex Jones's version of the tweet, but I looked at like a few different, posts about this, and like almost 80% or something of the comments were just people debating of like, Mormons aren't Christians. They're not really Christian. They're not real Christians. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on, dude?
Which is like, by the way, America at this point advocates for Satanists to run daycare centers and clean beaches, but still Americans treat Mormons the way the Nazis treated the Jews. Why is that? Like, what is the
I know
deal?
why. This is the easiest answer that's ever been posed on this show. It's because the Mormons have factually defeated the American military in multiple conflicts in our history. It's almost the same way that Scientology infiltrated the CIA, like the biggest expose of any state records. The Mormons did that, except they did it on like the actual battlefront. Like the entire founding of Salt Lake City and the Mormon Western expansion was a story of them just showing America's, their own ass, just because they were already so stretched thin between all these other conflicts they had going on that the Mormons were kind of cleaning up every time they had a standoff.
And refusing to murder people, like Schwarzenegger in Terminator 2. It's like if you actually look at the Utah War, it's freaking crazy, because they're like, I got a hand tied behind my back. If I spill blood, that Oingo Boingo song, what is the law? No spill blood, right? So the Mormons have to go.
Wait, though. What did Arnold Schwarzenegger say after he used the Tommy gun on all the cars and everything? And then he's like, hey, I thought you were programmed not to kill people. What did he say?
No, it's before that. You're mixing scenes up. So first he is walking in to help him save his mom. He's getting John Connor save his mom. And he shoots in the kneecap the security guard. And the security guard falls to the ground. He's disabled.
I remember that. But then it's later in the movie that John Connor says to him, I thought you said you were programmed not to kill people or something like that. And what does he say?
And he says, I lied. He says,
does he say, I lied?
No,
he
says trust me.
We're gonna have to fact check this because it's been a while.
I saw it like a couple of weeks ago. I can promise you, he says trust me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we saw it a couple weeks ago.
I watch it like regularly. It's part of my regimented therapy is to watch that movie every once in a while. But like
Terminator 2, the one that's better than Terminator 1.
Yeah, and I like all the Terminators. I like Terminator 3 a lot. Also,
I like Salvation. That was pretty good.
Is that the one with Christian Bale?
Yeah. Why did I like Salvation? I like Salvation because in Terminator 2, when you see like the beginning of it, where it's showing you like in the future, like this is how crazy everything is. I'm like, more of that, please. So the closest that they've given us, as far as I know, is Salvation, where you're just like, okay, it's the crazy robot war of the future. Like I'm into that. Yeah.
That in the video
it
game.
had some weird Burning Man qualities. I didn't completely. I like the way 3 ends because they get to that Fallout shelter that has all the analog technology. So they don't have any technology that the AI can like get inside of. So they're in this like 1970s, analog computer world that they can stop the AI. They're like in a bomb shelter. That one's really good. But the Salvation to me is weird, and maybe it's growing on me, but at the time I saw it in theater when it came out, I was really frustrated with what's the difference between man and a Terminator, the human heart. And they install a human heart in the Terminator, and that's what makes him live. And it's just, or like they have a robot heart in the guy. And it's like, I don't really, what are you trying to say? Because this is like, I just saw Battlestar Galactica. Like, I get it. Cylons are humans or Cylons.
There's another sync there too.
Maybe the more
because the girl from Halt Catch Fire was also in the latter of the Terminator movies, and her entire thing, like, she was a John Connor. Like, she was the John Connor within the microcosm of that particular Halt Catch Fire show. And it's wild that she ends up basically being in the Terminator franchise.
There you go.
That's fair.
It's archetype casting.
I actually liked Halt and Catch Fire a lot. I also rewatched Halt and Catch Fire, at least the first season, like a week or two ago, by the way. I can't help myself. I really like that show a lot too. But yeah, Mormon War, they weren't allowed to kill anybody, just like Schwarzenegger in the second Terminator movie, which was really an analogy. Okay. But the point is that they would like go and free all the cattle and all the horses, and then light all the food on fire. Because again, like, trust me, kind of thing. Like, we're gonna do as much as we can. If you starve to death because you came out to Utah and you didn't leave, that's your own fault. So they basically did their best to not murder anybody, and still basically won the battle up until they brought more reinforcements, and eventually they did lose. And you can tell because Mormons are super American patriotic now. And this is a big part of my conspiracy for the day, because I actually posted this, I don't know, earlier. Did you know? I already was thinking about this before this happened today. September 28th, 1890 is the anniversary. We're on the anniversary of this, the day that the LDS Church president Wilford Woodruff issued the manifesto, right? Which is the beginning of the end of polygamy, but more specifically, it's the formal advisement to the members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to obey the U.S. laws. Because up until that point, like we were saying, Mormonism was looked at as not just a religion, but a nation and a state. Deseret was its own country. And they were losing. They'd lost at that point because they basically were planning on blowing up Salt Lake City if they had to. But they were told, okay, well, we're going to make you have your own representative government and be part of the United States. And they didn't want originally to be part of the United States. They literally left because of the Freemasonic. I mean, you have to understand, we've said this before, Joseph Smith was the first presidential candidate ever assassinated in U.S. history. That had not happened before him. So they marched across, and if you play Oregon Trail, you know the whole thing. Like, they went as far west as they could go and started the Mormon Trail, which is literally the Oregon Trail, right? And it's the point you have to get to in the middle of the Oregon Trail game from Independence, Missouri. So it's interesting to me that today is the anniversary of the LDS Church being forced to submit to the United States. And what happened to Mormonism? I mean, they went from being this wild kind of psychedelic under the stars Deseret religion to, not quite then, but it happens in the 20th century, wearing white shirts, worshiping the American, not worshiping, but like pledging to the American flag and following the American law completely.
This is
and
interesting.
When you think of a...
Go on, sorry. I'm interrupting you. I apologize.
I just think it's interesting that the Mormons became considered an American, very patriotic American, because it was not like that for a long time. They were considering themselves their own country. And all of a sudden, well, we're going to be a part of the United States again. We're going to be a state. Utah will be a state in the United States, and eventually we'll make America great again, right? We're going to have America be a Christian nation the way originally Joseph Smith tried to be the president of the United States. We can probably, and this is when people talk about this all the time, this idea that the Mormons infiltrate the alphabet agencies. That the Mormons are a clean and sober, just like Scientologists, clean and sober organization filled with strong, committed, high energy people that are reliable and stable. And so they end up working for the police, the fire department, the FBI, the CIA, the Secret Service to defend the president, and eventually, maybe put one like Romney in charge there. Romney coming from a group that were in Mexico originally because they went to avoid following the Woodruff 1880 commission, right? They wanted desperately to avoid having to do what America told them to do, because America was taking their properties from them and saying, if you don't do exactly what America wants, the Mormon church will be seized, and every temple and every piece of property, and all the men will be arrested, and you'll have no one to take care of your wives, right? So they were trying to shut down the Mormon religion from the inside out at that point. And so we have my conspiracy theory. Go ahead.
No,
sorry. No, go ahead. Seriously,
sorry, I'll shut up. I'm just trying to butt in here. You go. You continue. Your conspiracy theory. Now I have to hear.
My conspiracy theory is that it's not that the Mormons are infiltrating alphabet agencies, but the other way around. Right.
Whoa.
And I left out another big part of this, which is that yesterday was the death of the prophet of the church. I don't know if you know what's going on.
The anniversary of what year?
No, yeah. I mean, literally the prophet who's been in charge of the church for the last 15 years, right? Russell M. Nelson. Russell M. Nelson was 101 years old. Yesterday, he passed away in the night, just before all this.
Yeah, he's the one who brought the hat back too. According to Heidi Love, that this hat that we see right here was kind of a taboo subject for like the early days. And when
That's the hat that he pulled the plates out of?
What's that?
That's the hat that he pulled the plates out?
Correct. Yeah, this is the one that he put the plates in, and then he would look into this hat in order to see what they were saying. And that for a large portion of Heidi's life, so like early 80s and 90s, this was taboo. This was like, don't bring up the hat. There's no magic hats. This is silly. And then Nelson busted it out at one point, and then it turned into like, oh yeah, the hat's always been here. Of course we got a magic hat. No one's ever denied having a magic hat. And that he's part of that like slow migration. And I want to just tag on what Andreas was saying, that it's not the Mormons infiltrating the alphabet, it's the other way around. You can almost look at a chart of all the leading elders of LDS. The second the beards go away, there's a direct correlation with the offshoot branch of Skull and Bones. Not a Yale branch, but there's like a Hawaiian branch, I think it was. I can't remember which college it is. There's an actual chapter of Skull and Bones, and this is the guy that came into power within the LDS Church. And like around the same time is when you see this complete shift. And there was a calculated and planned portrayal of like, we need to look clean cut now. We need to appeal to this different demographic. We're not cowboys in the West anymore. We're this new thing. And you can almost pinpoint it on a map. It's literally when you see the beard go away on all the elders' photos, that's pretty much when they start riding bikes.
Right. And they say, like, are we too poor to have white shirts? And that's when they start wearing white shirts.
Oh, is that like the Templars being like, we're too poor to have to not share horses?
Well, that's when you see Mormons on the tandem bike because they can't afford their own. So
on a bicycle built for two.
What is the science behind them not wanting to shed blood in the war? That's like a spiritual principle, right?
So good question. The Mormons believe in 2 unforgivable sins because everything's about atonement in Jewish law, and Mormons consider themselves an extension of the Jewish law. They think of that from Adam and Eve to Jesus. There's a diversion there to the Deuteronomists during the Babylonian Talmud, and that the Jewish law that we think of has gone off the deep end, but that Christ is restoring the original Adamic and Enochian and Melchizedek law. And so the law is that if this is done, then there's a cost to that, which is really interesting because African magic and Native American magic and South America, basically everyone in the world, they all follow this same tradition. If blood is spilt, then blood has to be spilt, an eye for an eye, all these other things.
However, exclusive to them though. How could
it's not?
Because that's I've not come to destroy the law, but to fulfill. And you look at the particulars around what it is that's being called out, or being. Yeah,
that's the idea. They're believing that this is the restoration of the most ancient primordial law that all people believe. And it's interesting because the Christian groups, like the Protestants and the Catholics and the Orthodox, they have to go to Africa and teach these people that this weird new Babylonian tradition where you have to worship the triangle like Pythagoras, right? The Trinity, or you have to worship the sacrifice of Jesus to be immortal and all the stuff that it's not congruent with African tradition. It's not congruent with indigenous traditions. But the Mormons will go anywhere. And they'll say, hey, you know how you do this thing because your ancestors did? Well, that's what Jesus was trying to restore. And they're like, oh, great. Here's a group that's trying to restore the things that our ancestors believed, that these other Europeans and Eurasian and people that are coming in and converting us are teaching us this bass-ackwards thing that's not the way that our people practice. So, yeah, the Mormons are way more in line with the way things are.
Also, just the graven image issue. And when you say worship, like that's the thing. This is all the go into any mystical school, you'll see this a lot with Indian philosophy too, where they'll have this kind of like treatment of like, they're like, look, if you like, when it comes to worship, it's like, there's certain things that are almost the equivalent. Like if you got a prescription from your doctor and then you took that prescription and put it on your mantle and like lit candles around it. And you're like, my doctor is the best doctor. Look at this prescription, but you never fill the prescription. Like that's the way that you can kind of treat the like you're talking about the Pythagorean theorem and all this stuff. It's like, this is something that has its place, but without application, it doesn't really have value. And so this has been coming up a lot, the application issue, because I'm seeing like the way that Christianity is being treated, like it's become very fashionable for a lot of people to jump on the Christian, like on a social level, on like this is something
Totally.
I want to connect with, but there's like kind of a conceptual relationship to the thing. And the thing about real Christianity, whatever the sect, even
Catholicism,
whatever the sect, you have this testing, because the point of Christianity, and it's not alone with this, but it's that you're going to have things come along that are going to really challenge you in life. They say call that challenging your faith or whatever, but I think that's a misleading way to put it, because I think it disregards like the nature of what faith really is. Like faith is like when reason reaches its limits, it's what carries you to the other shore, so to speak. It's like it's that humility that comes with that you've reasoned something out. Now what? It's not the absence of reason. So like I don't know. It's interesting with the LDS thing, because I don't think that they're like, they seem to have a perspective. My experience with the Mormons when they've come to my home and I've talked to them for long periods is that they seem to have a perspective on their religion that you don't always get. It doesn't feel fundamentalist. It feels like there's almost like a recognition of like humor and perspective and all these things, and they can embrace an allegory without like being so intense about like their belief system in the same way. Like there's not that rigidity. That hasn't been my experience, and maybe that's just because it's the missionaries and they understand that they're not going to win people over by being like
no, but they're literally open to like evolution, the idea that Genesis is metaphoric, and that because they're not basing scripture on being a recitation, and most Christians are doing this Muslim thing, which is the Quran means a recitation. And because so many Christian groups are from places where Muslims were in the Crusades with them, or they were conquered and converted from Muslims, like Spain, right? Spain was Muslim. They have this idea that the Bible is just the Western Quran. I mean, they don't realize it today, but subconsciously that's what's going on with most of these. Same thing with the Trinity and the Pythagorean theorem. Like they don't really get that they're stealing this from Pythagoras and Plotinus. They think that this is something from Jesus, but they do the same thing with the idea that the Bible is somehow a voicemail from God. It's not. It's written by people that were wrestling, prophets were wrestling with their ideas, and so they accept that this is going to have a human flavor of error in its interpretation, even if it's God breathed. It's through man's mouth, and there's going to be a
the Fibonacci sequence is in Genesis, and that's long before Fibonacci ever lived. And pi is in First Kings, and it's long before pi was regarded. Like all
tau and pi and phi and actually there's an amazing amount of math in Christianity, just not the Trinity. Like the Trinity is just this really weird one because it's Plotinus's allegory. It's the idea of like the one, the self, and the universe, and then the three is this major important idea that the Greeks and the Hermetics were really the Hellenic Hermetics.
Aristotle really pushed that as well, but no one really owns these things. That's kind of the point. It's kind of ridiculous the way people like treat it.
It would help if Christians knew that the Pythagorean theorem was what the Trinity is, because it's the easiest way to argue what the Trinity is. Most people can't describe the Trinity very well. They're like, well, it's God is three hypostasis, or they have to at least know that word, or else it's in their hand behind their back. But like God and Jesus and the Holy Ghost or Holy Spirit, they're three of this thing, right? Which is again a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Like it's if you can say that, then you can explain the Pythagorean, you can explain the Trinity better than 99% of these Christians who've been killing each other over. Like the Orthodox and the Catholics don't agree on the Trinity. They have their own, like the Orthodox think that there's a supreme father to the Trinity, which is the more Greek interpretation. The Catholics are several degrees away from the origin. This is the same thing with why they cross right to left and left to right. The Orthodox cross right to left, but the Catholics cross left to right. You know why? Because they saw priests doing it and they just mirrored it.
Right. So
there's no explanation.
What's the Italian Father Son House of Gucci? Like, I don't know which direction do you go for House of Gucci.
Yeah, I have to think about it. But yeah, the Catholics, the Italians will do it left to right because the priest does it right to left. And now the priests in Italy do it left to right, the same as it's this weird inversion, but it's also just a copy of a copy of a copy going back. So they've, which is also, it's 4, you know what I mean? It's like, so they've made it into 3 because they're trying to avoid the mother, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that they try to avoid about their interpretation.
I always wondered if that was just like a mnemonic device, because it was like the Father, the Son, and then the Holy Spirit. So it's like each touch gets a different word, and maybe people were screwing up when they're like the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Like it's more confusing that way.
They're cutting out wisdom, because wisdom is Sophia, is the chokmah, which is wisdom's the name of the wife of God, right? And it's like, this would have been so important to do at the time of the Crusades, because you would have been fighting against the monolithic, monotheistic Islam, because Islam is this idea that there is no wife of God, there is no son of God, there is only God. And the Christians are fighting, no, actually there is a son of God, but there was a mother of God. It stands to reason that if there's a father and there's a son.
So when you say,
it's pretty clear.
When you're looking at dimensions, so when you say the Father and you're like up here, this is also like kind of like Descartes. Like if you ever do body work or you look at medical stuff, the way that they'll say something superior, inferior, it's because of Descartes saying, I think, therefore I am. And you're like, what is it has to do with the pineal gland. So the pineal gland is the most high, right? So when you're going Father, so you're like, here's the source, a spiritual source. Son, it's a spiritual dimension, because the vertical dimension, just like it gets applied to the pathways of the Kabbalistic tree, and then the horizontal is the physical, and so this is the dwelling. So Shekhinah is the dwelling of God, right? So that's the housing, That's why it's funny to say House of Gucci, because it's like it's literally a house, right? So it's like it's Aleph and Beit. So Aleph is a spiritual man isn't. The Adam doesn't have life until it breathes in the nostrils. That's why there's this whole tradition in Judaism around life starting at the breath. The breath is central, but it's in spirit, like breath, spiration, like there's the etymology of spirit connects to breath, but then you have the spiritual meets the physical is kind of the meaning there. But I want to address something you were saying earlier on, Andreas, or at least maybe elaborate on the phenomenon, because you're describing like this view of like an infiltration of Mormonism, and then you're saying it's kind of the other way around. I think maybe it's both, like there's aspects of both. I keep coming across this phenomenon like repeatedly where people just assume that you're looking at an infiltration, which on one level you might be, but you're also like Baha'i is an example. Like Baha'i has influenced, and even here, the way I phrase it, it's kind of weird, because we would argue like Baha'i, if you go into it, like Baha'i has influenced so much of the regulatory agencies, like not just the United States, but even on a global level. And I have to wonder, I'm like, is this something that's being implemented from Baha'i itself? Or maybe it is in part, but it looks like it's the interest of the people who are actually running this. Is something, it's their own. We're looking to something to kind of like connect with what our goals are, and this is very resonant with that. So let's incorporate that. Like I think there's
a lot to Baha'i. I don't want to trash talk a religion, but when you look into the history of Baha'i and you see that like their whole idea is to replace Judaism and Islam with a new, and so there's a Mecca in Israel that they're supposed to go to, right? So they're always bowing towards the Mecca that is in Israel, because he's moved to Baha'i, and the Baha'i religion was brought to the West by Phoebe Hearst, right? The mother of William Randolph Hearst. So when you see the elite that were involved with the Baha'i religion, right? I mean, there's an explanation for why the Lucis Trust even looked to Baha'i as a sort of watershed project.
The World Health Organization is incorporated Baha'i in all kinds of different places.
So I was saying, like the Great Invocation of the United Nations is a Baha'i. It's a theosophic ritual.
You think that Alice Bailey took from Baha'i in that way?
I think that Baha'i took a lot from the Lucis Trust after.
Membership of water for Lucis Trust. We should call it by its real name, which was the Lucifer Publishing Company, no?
Well, aren't they originally the Tibetan?
Well, why don't we just call California Mexico then? I don't know.
It's a Tibetan Golden Lodge, right? Isn't that the? I thought that was the plan. The lodge.
Oh, well, that's the Theosophical angle. That's its origin. So that it's an offshoot of the Theosophical Society. So, and as far as the Tibetan masters go,
But Lucifer of Cagliari was, before Erasmus made the translation error to call Phosphore in the Bible Lucifer. Lucifer Cagliari was a Trinitarian who fought against Arians, Saint Arius, and at the time, many people were anti-Trinitarian, and so Luciferians were a group of very ardent Trinitarians that hated Arius. And today, if you say Saint Arius, I'm going to get in trouble just for doing it here. You're going to get all of these Catholics and Orthodox are going to stop fighting each other and turn at you like Agent Smith in the Matrix, and they'll all start together attacking you because they think, oh, well, Arius was a heretic and he was a horrible person, etc. But like they're essentially saying the same thing that Lucifer Cagliari are, and so they're really very similar to his group of Luciferians. And Luciferians were supporters of the Trinity and against Arius, and they were criticized by Erasmus and I think Augustine, and so by the 4th century, 5th century, 530s or something like that, we start to see the use of Phosphore and this archetype in Isaiah transfer to the name of Lucifer. And so people are like, oh, wow, Lucifer, Luciferians, these are really bad people. But there's
You told me. How do I join?
Which one? The Luciferians or the Arians? I'm a big Arian. I'm all about the Arians, really, I think. I mean, sounds bad, but doesn't Luciferian, which sounds worse, really, Arian or Luciferian?
They got bad connotations, but either way, you talk like this, Andreas, you're going to get the fluoride stare at the party, That's okay. Sometimes the fluoride stare is good. Maybe
great icebreaker though. Would you rather be a Luciferian or an Arian?
I never put that together, that Luciferian had Arian within it.
Oh, that's true. It does kind of. But they were there. You can see the picture here. Let me pull it up for you. Like this was, if you go still today to Cagliari, which is off the coast of Sardinia, you'll find, monuments to Saint Lucifer, right? So it's not even
What's
the context.
Let me. What's he got?
Oh, he got these two angels. An angel on his left shoulder, an angel on his right. He's holding.
He's got a beer.
And a goblet. Yeah. Well, wine probably.
No, it's beer.
Could be.
No, I'm joking. Never mind.
You never know.
And a feather or a fan. What is that? It's
the quill, a writing quill.
Oh, right? That's a big writing quill. I guess he's got, a lot to play.
Yeah, it does look like Mario Brothers, like emote for the flying.
Check out the quill on Lucifer over here.
Passionate opposition to Arian, and he defended Athanasius of Alexandria.
Wait. Hold on. Scroll up a little bit. I'm trying to look at the Dionysus.
I wonder if the quill is like almost like symbolic of him trying to get his wings back. Because isn't there in the show since Deb where we see Lucifer's wings get like burned off as he falls from heaven?
That is interesting, actually, to think about like that. That's one wing he uses to write.
Like a wingish looking quill.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, so originally he wasn't. Originally he wasn't considered to be an angel, and Lucifer was. So in the Bible, when they mention Lucifer, they're actually writing Phosphore, which means the Venus star, and so they're talking about these stars, these luminaries, and the rising of Venus in the morning. And then when they say falling angel, what they're really saying is the descending. So there's the rising and the descending of stars in the sky. So it's an astrological, astronomical observation that we're saying. And it's not that they're falling. It's the descension of this planet, of the star that we're looking at. And it's translated into this way, which is also because Isaiah is written over 3 periods, right? 600 BC, just before the Babylonian Talmud, 400, 390 something, and then 200 BC, like right before, during the Hellenic period. And the Hellenic period really rewrites a bunch of these things, but you can read Isaiah with interlinear to see the original Hebrew and then the English, and you can see that it's written in 3 different voices, right? So it's 3 different people have written 3 different things that do not have the same way of writing or the same grammar, even because it's written in different periods. So Isaiah is not a single prophet who wrote Isaiah, right? I think this is another. These are the kinds of things that bother people about their, the Bible being the recitation of God. It's like, well, then why didn't he just do it all in one sitting?
Right, and why when you're looking at the Tanakh, that they're like, you're looking at almost entirely, you're looking at the Hebrew versus the Aramaic, and there's certain exceptions, right? And then but they're included nonetheless. And so this is the thing, is that there's kind of there's debates on certain books, like in the what we'd call now the canon. I mean, but canon usually includes the New Testament, but still, where there's debates on what is now regarded as apocrypha. There's some people who feel that certain books of the Bible should be apocrypha if they're not in the original tongue, or what's attributed to. This is the Bible, so yeah, it's weird.
This is another plus for Mormonism, though, because Mormonism seems way more fluid and flexible compared to almost any other, I'll say, branch of Christianity. I'll say it's a branch of Christianity that almost every other branch, it's so tied to the Old and the New Testament and all of these, that even if you're not necessarily Catholic, papal decrees still echo throughout and still have effect on even non-Catholic denominations. But Mormonism somehow, it isolates all that. And almost and maybe I'm out of turn here, Andreas, but it's almost like the Bible and the New Testament are put into a crystal ball or a bubble, and then Mormonism is sort of emanated from this. It's how this feels. Here's this new set of rules and standards, and that the Mormon Church is able to come together every year, every few years, and reinterpret things as the world develops. And there's no other sect of Christianity that seems to have that high level of standardization in such a fluid state compared to all the other sects.
Well, so there's the yes and no, but there's a couple problems with that. So one is that God's law is unchanging. Our interpretation changes all the time. So it's true that on one hand, we might have completely misunderstood something for generations. And this has happened before with, for instance, blacks. The Mormon Church used to ban black people. It didn't start that way. Originally, there were black priests. If you go back to the beginning, Joseph Smith was letting women do things, letting blacks do things. He was advocating for the complete emancipation of all slaves in the United States. He was a very progressive person. But when Joseph Smith dies, when he's murdered, then they go to Utah. Brigham Young is, and a lot of people from the South and these different were very racist. There's a lot of people that were not interested in letting blacks continue. And so it took until the 1960s for the Mormon Church to say, actually, we completely misunderstood this, and blacks are and always should have been welcome in the church. But it's not that the church has progressed to a point where now all of a sudden they're more woke and they're more accepting, and that the law of God has changed. It's that we were wrong to misinterpret it, and we need to go back and fix the mistakes. How they baptize in the name of the dead.
It sounds like potato to me at a certain level, though, man.
Well, it isn't because of the woke thing. So I was just thinking about
whatever the reason that whatever the catalyst is, the end result is still retconning, right?
That Spider-Man was anti-Mormon, right? About this. Right. Did you see this? So if you look at, he's got the sticker here for the CES letter right here. The CES letter is a letter written by an ex-Mormon who's talking about his Mormon doubts, and it's
wait, but that's Spider-Man. That didn't look like traditional Marvel Spider-Man.
No, it's woke. It's modern woke Spider-Man, and this is that idea of infiltration I was talking about.
Or is Spider-Man being woke, or are they just reinterpreting what Spider-Man meant all along?
So hey, I have a question for you. When in World War II, I know that a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses were killed in concentration camps. Mormons, not so much, right?
Right, not so much. They were treated pretty well, actually, but they did have some problems near the end of the war. But at first, they were looked at kind of favorably because they were first the way that the Reich was trying to take an approach with the Catholic Church, they were more interested in doing that with the Mormon Church, and they saw that the Mormons were basically congruent with a lot of the values that the positive values that the Reich originally wanted to instill in certain circumstances, because it wasn't all about anti-Semitic murder or racism or any of those things.
It's about gays and handicapped people and all kinds, anyone who really didn't fit in. But then the Mormons seem to get kind of a pass, at least what you're saying early on or something. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but it didn't last, and at the same time, the Catholic Church started working against the Reich, and so everything changed very quickly by 1938. But in the early 30s, the Jehovah's Witnesses were specifically at odds with the Reich, and so they were targeted specifically. But the Reich was trying to work with, and I think you did an episode about this actually, right, with Heidi, didn't you, Thomas?
Yeah, the Mormons in the Third Reich, where they were very much like had a symbiotic relationship in a lot of ways. Although I would say that it probably paled in comparison in terms of actual result if you look at how much like the Bush family liked the Third Reich or any other corporate like Coca-Cola liked the Third Reich. It probably had a bigger impact than all the Mormons combined.
Yeah, and I mean, they were essentially the way that the Mormons had dismantled the Freemasons, and the Freemasons were forbade in Utah for a long period of time. And the questions at the time about Joseph Smith being murdered by Freemasons left them very anti-Masonic up until that point. They became very more Masonic, I think, in the 50s when the beards go away. So at that time,
comes back in, yeah,
the skull and bones come back in, and so they, nobody really complained in the newspapers about Hitler at first. He was on Time magazine as Man of the Year, and very few people were extremely upset when there were people, but when he first were starting to to arrest and to quarantine Jewish citizens of Germany, this wasn't the biggest issue that caused us to go to war with the Reich.
He was a cartoon character, and there's the way he was being treated or depicted was kind of like he's a funny guy. It's like, look at this guy get all worked up and freak out, and
Ford was for it. A lot of American, and this is an interesting thing, that before James Jesus Angleton started recruiting tons. I mean, because during the OSS, we needed. The CIA, the proto-CIA, needed people who spoke German and people who spoke Russian to infiltrate as agents. And there were a bunch of these Ashkenazi Jews who looked German enough, spoke German, and they made great spies. And this was the beginning of the infiltration, because they started recruiting more and more Jews into the OSS and the CIA. And this was, I think, a major reason why the United States and the CIA was able to help in the production or the creation of the state of Israel after 47. And, why, when people talk about media, they always say the Jews controlled the media, but look at the 20s. It's not true. In the 20s, you have William Randolph Hearst. You have, most of the people that were famous filmmakers weren't Jewish originally. And so in the 60s, there are more and more connections between the CIA and Hollywood. And
obvious reason for why there's so many Jews in Hollywood going back is, first of all, people keep things in the club, so to speak. So there's family and whatever. It's like nepotism. But then it's that there were so many industries that Jews were not allowed to work in. And in the early days of Hollywood, this includes the porn industry too, by the way, is that no one was telling them that they couldn't do this. So it's like they're almost founded portions of an industry and then kept it in their circle, and the rest is history. But it's you see that too, like on a global level, like with Egypt and Syria and all these places that Jews weren't allowed in. And so the agreement for them is a bigger subject, obviously, it's complicated, but for them to have their land in 1948, for the British and everybody and the UN to equivalent powers that be making this agreement,
right?
But
it didn't start out with,
and then there's a war, and then they win the war, and then into the future. So it's kind of weird, But
if you look at the history though,
but yeah,
Frank Capra wasn't Jewish. Ince, who was shot probably by Hearst, wasn't Jewish, and Hearst wasn't Jewish, and John Ford, and just generally, it's not that Hollywood was a very Jewish place. It was that theater was in the 1890s. And so Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, these groups of theaters started producing studios. And at a certain point, there's more and more film that is associated with Jewish people, but really only after the CIA is recruiting with James Jesus Angleton for Operation Chaos. And then you start to see more and more. And this is very practical again, because not only are they recruiting to fight against the Reich, people who could speak German, which included German Jews, but they were eventually needing people in 49 to fight and beyond to fight against the Soviet Union. And there were tons of anti-Bolshevik Jews who were part of the CIA at that point. And even beyond that, probably Bolshevik Jews as well, which might explain some of the Soviet Union lifting of atomic technology, right? And all of these sort of things that are like considered back and forth. These are where we start seeing people blaming Jews for their interaction with media and everything else, but mainly because of the CIA Mockingbird, which is infiltrated. And I think that's something that's not talked about a lot when they create the anti-Semitic conspiracy about Hollywood.
Yeah, it's funny when people will talk about, like, because I spent my whole life with conspiracy circles, and the way that Mockingbird gets treated, like 100%, like it's acknowledged by conspiracy theorists that this is something that never really stopped. Just like people like Roseanne or something would make the same argument that MK Ultra never stopped, and like our friend from The Whitest Kids it's like, these things didn't stop, they just kind of changed and twisted and did whatever they did. But like that's true to what the goals were for Mockingbird, and how those goals have never really changed.
Did you see the new South Park this week?
Yeah.
And
let me squeeze one thing in really quick about the CIA and the Jews again, because I've got to read on this one. I always thought this was fascinating. I read this in a Will Eisner comic book called The Protocols. It's all about the history of the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. And in this comic, he actually has this really interesting fact that I looked up and is true, that Alan Dulles, he actually started building some of his rapport within these high levels and elites in the early 1920s, because when he went to Istanbul, he basically wrote this report about how the protocols of the Elders of Zions that made their way throughout Germany and Bavaria were basically a forgery, and that he was like, Alan Dulles was instrumental in sort of pitching the protocols of the Elders of Zion on a new trajectory of like, well, that's a hoax, that's a fake, that's a forgery. And this earned him like incredible amounts of rapport with intelligence community and also the Jewish community.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And at the same time, you've got the Protocols of the Elders of Zion being committed. Like, so every single Model T that Ford sold came with the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. So
and the International Jew, right?
And the International Jew, and he made sure that these got into the hands of the Tsar, and a number of people became particularly worried about the Jews in the Soviet Union, in the Russian kingdom. The Russian. Is it kingdom or empire, and under the Romanov dynasty. And this was a major reason that the Bolsheviks took to power. And it's also the creation of the Zionist state of the Soviet Union that was created. But I just wanted to bring up, because of South Park, because this is a really important thing to me, that they said specifically that the American Jew is not a part of Israel necessarily, particularly the American people. And they gave a large dressing down as Kyle's mom to Netanyahu, saying, how can you do what you're doing? You're essentially making Jews look bad, and actually using the Jew as a sort of human shield for your actions, because you're forcing everyone to associate the destruction from your government, and particularly your government, not just the state of Israel, not just the people of Israel, but by forcing them to be part of the military, you're also making complicit the idea of Judaism itself, right? And Jewishness itself, with these war crimes that are being committed. And it was an interesting take, I think, from South Park, because that's exactly what was going on in the 1950s with James Jesus Angleton, and maybe even what I'm saying earlier about the Mormonism thing with the woke, because first you have the destruction of the Boy Scouts. Hear me out on this one, because the Boy Scouts was such a major Mormon thing, that you have the replacement with woke in Utah, and it's this infiltration into Utah the other direction. So it's not just that they're recruiting.
Didn't the episode start out with the Boy Scouts?
It totally did, and that freaked me out. It was
yeah.
amazing.
So I was like, when I watched it, I was like, wait, and I was trying to figure out the timing. So I was like, this episode just came out, and I was like, and Andreas was talking about getting emotional about the Scouts, and then I start the new South Park, and I'm seeing the Scout, and I'm like, wait, what is happening? Like, I was like, did you see this already? And I didn't. And I was like, no, this didn't come out by the time you were talking about.
I was completely
is
shocked.
on overdrive lately. It seems like. I mean, the way that they posted the Charlie Kirk thing on 8/6, and then he gets 86, like not too much longer. There's something really weird going. And you said, right, David, you posted that there was an 8/6 on the poster.
Oh yeah, and so like I caught that before Charlie Kirk died, and I was like, why is there an 8/6 on the poster? And I was like, are they like it's the 8 is like hidden behind the 6, like the way that they show it. It's a poster. Miss Mackie is standing there. It's when Clyde is basically, there's like this war between Cartman and Clyde, like who's Charlie Kirk, right? Who's going to be the Charlie Kirk archetype?
Who's going to win the Charlie Kirk Award?
Who's going
to apparently is to be
who's going to win the Charlie Kirk Award? And so there was like this whole weird thing where Clyde is in this room at Mar-a-Lago, and like he's just like miserable. And he's like, I made it. This is what it means to make it. But then, the guidance counselor comes in the room, and he's working for ICE, right? So he's just like, wandering around. And he's like, Clyde, like, what are you doing in here? And if you look at the poster on the wall by Mr. Mackey, it's like something about games. It's like something about like playing games or whatever. But there's dice. But there's also just like 2 cards, one that says 6 in the front and the one that says 8 behind it, and the way that they're situated, and they did it just perfect, so it couldn't be a 3. Like you're like, oh, is that an 8? And you look at it, you're like, no, that is absolutely an 8. So like, did I have this subliminal 86 with this confrontation with basically Charlie Kirk being like, it's not all it's cracked up to be. Here I am, I made it, and it felt like it was like. It was that, like, I've never been offended by South Park in my life that I can remember. Like, like, I mean, I like Meryl Streep, like first season. I'm like, wow, you guys take it easy. No, just kidding. But, no, or whatever, who it was.
Barbara Streisand.
Anyway, Barbara Streisand. Thank you. But, what they were doing with Charlie Kirk, I was like, first of all, they had actual direct quotes that were obvious relating to abortion and stuff. That was there. But then that's fine. That's great. And Charlie Kirk thought it was hilarious himself. Like he said, the quote unquote, this is hilarious. And he made it his profile pic of Cartman and stuff. And he ran with it. Because quite an honor to be like a South Park character. Like what a trip.
Totally.
Even if they're ripping into you, it's like, well, they rip into everybody pretty much, although they seem to leave Biden alone and Kamala, which is weird because it seems like those would have been really good, funny opportunities. Bumbling Biden as a South Park character.
Yeah,
obviously.
Really curious, isn't it?
But on the Israel issue with Charlie Kirk, the way that they treated it was like he was like just this stereotypical, like I don't know what, like Fuentes. They basically took Fuentes and had like his views be Charlie Kirk's views, like explicitly in that episode. And I thought that was weird. And I was like, I wonder. And at the time when I watched it, I was like, I wonder what Charlie feels about this, because his views on Israel were pretty nuanced. Like he would acknowledge certain things that certain people didn't want to hear, and acknowledge other things that the other side didn't want to hear. And he's saying both at the same time. And if you listen closely, there wasn't contradiction, because he's literally like, and he's entertaining possible, plausible, like basically intentional incompetence with what happened with October 7th, which is like, whoa. For some people, especially like even Zionist Christians are like, whoa. So there's like this, and his what he was coming up against. If you want to know what Charlie Kirk was coming up against, watch the documentary Till Kingdom Come. It's a heavy hitter. There's way more Zionist Christians in the United States than there are Jewish Zionists, and that was what Charlie Kirk was surrounded by in large part.
Totally.
And so, like in his process his process with it was like he was trying to be as honest with himself, and then like you can see it, and he's only 31. My God, like he could have been president someday. Like if he would have stayed on his trajectory, because literally opening up, I'm being Captain Obvious here, so what? But like he opened up a debate, and he's like, if you change my mind, I will adjust accordingly. Like when I set up my table for Kennedy at the farmers market for 7 months straight, like I had it like Kennedy for president, And then once he dropped out, all these people thought I wouldn't keep coming, you know, and they told me that. But I showed up with a table and I modeled my banner after Charlie Kirk, and I gave my assessment of what was happening with the Democrats. And this is in California, Santa Cruz. Like, I've got people screaming at me, calling me bigot, losing their minds. And I was just like, I'm just here to have a conversation. Like, you know, and I did my best not to react to people when they would scream at me. And like, I had all these people by the end of it. So I had a sign, it had at the bottom of it, it had changed my mind. And I sat there and I was inspired by what he did. And I was just like, I'm going to do my own thing here. But this is what I see. Can you change my mind? If you give me a good enough argument, I will adjust. So like, that's what he did. That's what's so fucking, I'm saying what a lot of people are saying, but that's what's so insanely tragic about it. It's like, dude, he was having conversations with people and being like, and there was times where you'd see that if somebody came along with a good enough debate, he would change his position to be like, oh, well, that's actually true, you know? And so you're seeing that happen in real time all the time. And so that was what it felt like in that episode with, not Cartman, but what is his name? I want to say Craig, but is it Craig?
Isn't it Craig? Yeah, I think
yeah.
So.
Yeah, like he was like, it seemed like he was like at this place where he's like, whoa, man, like, where am I? Like, what is this? What am I a part of? You know? I don't know. I liked it.
Well, so I mean, this goes back to what you were saying though about woke in the church and like the way that the Mormons are flexible or something like that. There's certain things that they can be flexible on because man is changing, but there's certain things they can't be because they think of these things as the law of God. So a big one is gay marriage, and that was connected to the Boy Scout thing. If you remember, like originally South Park talks about the Boy Scouts with Big Gay Al being the best scout master, and he never touched kids or did anything wrong. But there was a super normative scout master who did take pictures of the boys naked and was doing all sorts of horrible things and abuses. So this guy obsessed with masculine imagery and everything was the bad scoutmaster and Big Gay Out. And they said, okay, there should be a place for gays in the Scouts. Cut to 2025 when the Boy Scouts became the They Scouts, Pride Scouts essentially, and started, going through tons of, in 2018, they went bankrupt. The Boy Scouts of America went bankrupt from fighting against all of these class action molestation assault lawsuits. And it was the complete destruction of the Scouts. By that point in 2017, a year earlier, the Mormons, who had been the biggest group in the Scouts, and I remember as a kid when I was a Scout, it was like, if you want to be a Boy Scout, you have to do all these merit badges. Well, the Mormon church on Sunday would meet, and then they would say, hey, guys, come back to the church tomorrow, Monday. We'll have Jeff in the parking lot with his van, and we're going to all get our mechanics badge because we're all going to do the oil badge together. And then Tuesday, we'll do the radio badge at Steve's house, and then we'll do kite badge on Thursday. And by the end of a month or a couple months into this, you have like hundreds of merit badges, and everybody does because they all work together. And it was crazy how amazing the Mormons were at being Boy Scouts. So when they left the Boy Scouts, it was like there's not going to be a Boy Scouts after that. And on one hand, that was terrible for the Boy Scouts and became this weird group now, which is what they brought up in South Park. That now you have this Weebelo, who's the Cub Scout group right before the Boy Scouts, the Weebelo, and their name I forget now. I forget what it is, but it's an androgynous. It's basically Pat. You can't tell whether it's a male or female. The whole class is hedge betting whether the Weebelo is a male or a female because they're gender neutral.
The Boy Scouts filed Chapter 11 on February 18th of 2020. So that's like a 218.
Oh, God, really?
Yeah, that's a 218 alchemical code in this matrix.
Oh, damn, dude. Wow.
That's so hardcore. I mean, yeah, so it hit me pretty hard. I got to admit, like I did not take to the Boy Scouts falling apart very well. I feel like the only people who can get it are like Soviet Union kids who are part of the Lenin pioneers. Like they're the only ones who understand what it's like to watch the destruction of the Boy Scouts. It's the feeling that you get in Star Wars if you're Obi-Wan Kenobi and an entire planet is blown up. You're just like, ugh.
I just want to say, for anyone that's considering bringing their kids into the Boy Scouts or the Cub Scouts or whatever the Scouts of America now, just bring them to Day Molay. Just bring them to the Daughters of Job. Don't do all this silly stuff. Like, give them actual life skills.
I mean, the Boy Scouts used to have the real life skills. You know,
Yeah,
that was the thing. Like
that's
you
the whole
learn
point.
that. I mean, anyone I know from my
They're
generation,
irrelevant now, though, man. They're 100% irrelevant. Even if you want to,
They might not be relevant. See what happens. You
Yeah,
just give
bro.
it some
You
time,
wanna-
Thomas. They're not irrelevant
wait
now. You want to know how to make a fire. You want to know
Wait
how
till
to,
Red
how
Dawn,
to
bro.
survive. Yeah, you don't know, man.
Wait till Red Dawn, and you'll see. Because like, when I know
New
someone my
version of
age is
Cub Scouts in this version that we're talking about, like you don't make a fire by doing Cub Scout stuff. You'd make a fire by finding like old batteries and knowing how to wire it up just right, and then like
so you got your electrical badge, you got your electrical merit badge, yeah. Like okay, do you know what you use to make a
There's a
crystal
lot
radio?
of different merit
You get your
badges,
crystal
bro.
radio badge?
Yeah.
Do you have your
And
crystal radio badge? Because I do.
You make a good point though. Like things need to evolve in time of like what it would mean to be a Boy Scout. You don't have to be like a Boy Scout in the 50s just because it's 2025. You know.
Dude, but Boy Scouts in the 50s knew how to change an engine, or like have build a crystal radio set, and if you were in a prison, out of household supplies, how to dress wounds, how to deal with ticks, how to purify water. I mean, a Boy Scout in the 50s was. I mean, I had my Boy Scout book from the early 90s, and I had one that they gave me in the late 90s, in the early 2000s. And I had my dad's Boy Scout handbook from the 1950s. And I got so much out of the 1950s manual, how to make fires the old way, how to do those, because the old ways never die. The old ways are the things you need to know how to do if the world falls apart. And sure, if you know how to use batteries, that's really important. And you need to understand how to charge batteries or how to use solar panels. But they were adding those skills. Those skills weren't replacing the primordial skills of how to survive outside, how to track stars. I mean, how to exist if you ever were isolated from the rest of civilization for a period of, if you get lost on an island for a year and a half, you're going to need those skills that you learned in the Boy Scouts. And they took that away from everybody. And they took it away from the Mormons. And the Mormons now are a completely different bunch than they were 20 years ago. Now, there's still guys 35 or 40 or older that have been through all those things and have all those skills. And maybe they can pass down a few of them to their kids. But that organization structure is gone. And there's no way to really, I mean, maybe you could build some sort of ibis scouts that are following in the Egyptian schools. And I think that Thomas is actually kind of weirdly right about the Demolay, even though I don't think the Demolay are really pushing for the skill sets that the Boy Scouts used to push for. But I think it's on purpose. And it's not, and this is what I mean by it's not just the infiltration of the Mormons into alphabet agencies, but the other way around. The same way alphabet agencies infiltrated into Israel, into the Zionist movement, into what we think of as like the infiltration backwards from into the Jewish communities. The same thing, infiltration into the Mormon communities. And the weakening of Utah is it's unignorable. If you go to Salt Lake City and you see the people on fentanyl in public parks, it does not look like Salt Lake City did in the 1980s. The Utah is under attack in this crazy way, and they're destroying the values that Utah used to have. And people will say you're some sort of a trad fascist if you try to protect or conserve the values that a community has. But it's really noticeable that they're weakening the community and the resolve of the community. And there's more and more of this
divide in the Salt Lake City community that I saw when I went there a couple times, years ago, but I could see the first inklings of it. Cause when you take a Greyhound places, I don't know what it's like now, but when I used to take a Greyhound, you could stop anywhere along the way. And as long as you still had your ticket, I think 3 weeks was the limit. So you could stay in a place for weeks. I didn't stay for a full 3 weeks, but I stayed in Salt Lake City longer because I was like going through and I was like, what a weird place. But their people were like, our parents are crazy. They're crazy. Some people would be like that. And they'd have like these vegan little restaurants and stuff. And I go and I'd hang out and talk to these people. And they had
we was Boy Scouts. Ouch.
But no, I guess there's something about the dividing of the family unit in the first place, on just on the level of across the country and the way that people cut off their families and stuff. But there's a divide that I already saw. I could kind of see the trajectory of Salt Lake City because there's such the way that the children were relating to the thing was so removed from what their parents were into and up to, don't know. I could see the conflict there, and it was really intense. Like they wanted to rebel, but it's this small community. How do you rebel against your parents in this small community? Like, I guess I'll open up a vegan cafe and do shows there and stuff. But it's such a weird, like it's the whole place feels like an experiment. And then I don't even know like what I could see the trajectory of it years ago, and so I can only wonder what it's like there now. But
there's a lot of Old Testament connections to Utah. Have you seen that? Like the Dead Sea was just a salt lake. It's the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, Lot's wife.
Yeah,
turned
I mean, they believe that it was where Adam and Eve came from, right? It's not Utah, but from the coast of Eden would have been Missouri, right? Mm-hmm. And if you look to the west, let me find it for you. The Western Interior Seaway. So they were saying this years before. Centuries before the woke and scientific atheists started to say this. But once we started looking at maps and seeing where that sea was that made the Salt Lake, well, Utah is on one coast, and Missouri, Independence, Missouri, where Joseph Smith died. This is on the other, Carthage, right? But on this other side here, and the thought is that Adam and Eve wandered out of the Garden of Eden in Independence, Missouri, south into essentially like Alabama or Arkansas or something.
That's so funny. So it's called Appalachia, like an apple.
Oh yeah. Appalachia.
Not bad at all. Yeah, I'll take it. Yeah, and the idea of California being an island and that this is all more recent, because they'll tell you this is true, but then science will tell you this is like millions and millions and millions of years ago, so that you don't have to worry about it, like stars and aliens, or like they exist, but they're just so far, far away, right? Like, don't worry about it. But yeah, the entire idea of Mormonism is, Utah, Uden, right, and Zion. They legitimately believe it. It's not just like a metaphor, that part to them. And I think it's not the only community that's been infiltrated, right? Like you can think of the same thing with African Americans who are saying, hey, we've had our community exploited, turned into a working class, a sustainable labor force, and we should build strong families, strong communities, be independent, autonomous, and have our own power. And they had to remove, like the CIA killed very particular targets who were strengthening African American families and communities and replace them.
He flipped the script right before he died, which I think is what people are kind of trying, like reading into what happened with Charlie Kirk, because you're like, he started, like Malcolm X started saying things and doing things that what happened, he had his mind blown because he went to Mecca and he saw white Muslims. He met white Muslims and he was like, wait, what? Because he had been given this whole, and also what happened with his teacher, with his children that he wasn't helping and all of that, but like with all these different women and stuff. And so he had an initial disillusionment before going to Mecca. And then he goes to Mecca and the whole thing just fell apart. And then he came back and shook Martin Luther King's hand and started calling him Uncle Tom. And so that was why I think a lot of people assumed that what had happened to Malcolm X was that he was killed by his own people, but it's also just as likely that he was killed by the CIA. Do we know now who killed Malcolm X for sure? No.
We know that he was being reported all the time. Well, I mean, the thing is, you can see what they did afterwards, right? So they recruited black Marxists and replaced the Black Power movement with black Marxist, black nationalism, right?
Right, but and here's the thing, dude. I'm sorry. I like it keeps happening. Like we're going through. It feels like, do we even realize? Like every freaking time these people have like they're hated by a lot of people, and then as soon as they die, those same people who hate them on their behalf are like jumping in and like using their death in all these different ways. It happened with Martin Luther King. So many black people hated Martin Luther King, and then there were ones rioting on his behalf once he died. So many black people hated Malcolm X, and then when he died, I think, and I'm not just black people, like people, like it was just like all these people who hated, a lot of white people who hated Martin Luther King were like, oh no, we lost Martin Luther King. It's just like, and the same thing happened with establishment Democrats and Robert Kennedy. Robert Kennedy was so disliked by so many establishment Democrats, and those same people who were talking just shit about him while he was alive and doing what he was doing and fighting corruption and all this stuff, as soon as he died, and years to follow. They're just like, oh, so solemn. I can't believe we lost, Robert Kennedy. It's like, you didn't give a fuck. And excuse me. But yeah, anyway.
That's
Sorry.
a better response, though, than what we've gotten recently. Like with the Charlie Kirk thing, there's so many people that are just like openly celebrating or talking about what a piece of shit he was. Like, I don't know. I just feel like that's like such a different legacy than at least having a remorse, right?
Like
Like
both things at once. In all those cases, it's both things at once.
The thing is, Malcolm X, like even with all of the spying and recordings they have of him, they knew that Malcolm X was like an honorable man who loved his wife, loved his children, and never cheated on her, never did anything, not just illegal, but immoral. He followed a strict code of conduct. He was one of the great, he's one of the great Americans of the 20th century. He's one of the great heroes of the 20th century. And they knew that and acknowledged that and said, we need to put someone in there who we have evidence of committing crimes that we can control, right? And this is the thing. Martin Luther King has been caught in relationships with other women, with younger women who are even before the age of 18. And it was easy to control him in a lot of ways that they couldn't do with Malcolm X. And that's just Martin Luther King. You look at Huey Newton and you start looking at Angela Davis, you start seeing things about the Black Panthers. And the more you get into the control mechanism, the people that are propped up, then you start to see groups of people that are very easy to control because they have them addicted to drugs. They have them committing both crimes and things that would not be acceptable by their own communities and would out them as charlatans. And so they end up being forced to endorse narratives, right?
All that information and that blackmail that you're talking about all came from FBI COINTELPRO.
I was going to bring up, because this is the thing. If you ask Grok about this, COINTELPRO was most likely involved with the assassination of Malcolm X, and they pretty much have all the evidence except some of the NOI files have not been declassified yet. And so there's been a push even last year.
There was a deathbed confession in 2011 by a cop that said that he personally was involved with setting up the murder of Malcolm X at the behest of the police and the FBI.
Thank you.
Right.
See, that's the kind of shit I'm wondering about, because for so long it's just been one of those, JFK kind of like, I don't know who does,
So November 15th, 3 of Malcolm X's daughters did a $100 million wrongful death lawsuit against the FBI, NYPD, and the CIA, and they basically asserted that the agencies conspired to create conditions for the assassination of arresting Malcolm. The undercover federal agents were present in the ballroom but failed to intervene and were watching. A decades-long cover-up suppressed evidence of wrongful prosecutions. And this is also interesting that in the same place that Trotsky was murdered, Shabazz, son, was murdered in Mexico, in Tijuana. So this is, it was just somebody I actually knew. I knew Shabazz. So the whole thing is very deeply, we're about, hopefully in the year that we'll start to see it. February 2025, Trump called for declassification, arguing that they could reveal more about the NOI tensions within the agency surveillance, and it still hasn't come out, but they're expecting it probably to come out.
Well, if we're going to find out about Amelia Earhart first, they're going to release the Amelia Earhart files. We can really get to the bottom of that,
She's probably alive in Antarctica.
I'm happy about that. If it really
that's what they're saying right now. But I just thought, especially at that time, like, she's going a long distance over the ocean. You'd think that she's just somewhere in the ocean. But I don't know what's in the files. Maybe it's about her private life.
A long time ago that she got executed as like a prisoner of war or something.
She's probably in Antarctica right now with the Hyperboreans in North.
It could be the key to everything. It could solve it all. It could totally trump the Epstein stuff. I have no idea, the significance of Amelia Earhart, but yeah.
There's also go ahead.
Sorry. No, you go ahead. I was going to jump.
No, how about jump it? Do it. It's fine.
Oregon ICE facility attack, and now I'm looking at Bernie Sanders saying that it's to bring in the army, not just the National Guard, but the army is absolutely illegal because that's a domestic thing. And I'm like, I don't know much about military stuff. My brother was in the National Guard. He told me certain things, but I'm like, foreign and domestic, is that not the army oath thing? Like, And then also, like, when it comes to government facilities, like if government facilities are being attacked, isn't that an example of where the president is actually in a position where they can deploy the army to deal with? Like, I don't even need to defend it. I'm just like, from a technical place, just objectively, what is the law? Like, it looked to me that, I mean, it takes 2 seconds to see that Bernie Sanders doesn't know what the shit he's talking about. I'm sorry, that's what it looked like. And I'm just like, Antifa, they can't be fascist. It's right in the name that they're anti-fascist. Well, I'm sure there's never been an example of any group that's had a name that didn't live up to, no one expects a Spanish Inquisition. Like, I don't even,
bro. If you can't even trust that like the Subway $5 foot long isn't actually a foot long, then everything's out the window. Like,
Sure.
You couldn't be more explicit about measurements and metrics.
right? Totally. Well, I'm just talking about the law, man. I'm like, what is the law? Like, it's just tripping me out. It'd be one thing if it was a pundit and they made a statement. Like, if it was just somebody on CNN and they said something, I really wouldn't care. But it's like, dude, this guy, I'm sorry. Like, this guy is a sitting senator. Like, he doesn't know the most basic function of the military, like what, like the directives and like any of that, like, or he does know and he's just lying, because it's one or the other. If there's a third option, I'd love to hear it. Either he's ignorant or he's lying. What the hell?
I think this is a thing I posted the other day. Closet homosexual homophobes beat up straight kids and then jerk off in their Mustangs on the way home all the time. We're just trying to help you examine your own Nazi tendencies. Like, what's the difference between Antifa and Nazi? Antifa and Nazi, I mean, Antifa is about as anti-fascist as Nazi is socialist, right? As National Socialist is socialist. It's a branding thing. And it's interesting how it's used to justify Nazi or fascist tendencies. I don't know. And this is another thing.
I mean,
like, I had Gennady on the show. I was going to say,
it was
this is something.
Because, sorry.
Gennady made a pretty good point on the show last time he was on, because he's like, well, really, fascism refers to a romanticization of the Roman Empire that the Italians were using as an aesthetic. And it's true that we use it to mean authoritarianism, but even we've fallen in the trap of doing that, because it's not really what it's meant to mean. It has nothing to do with collectivism, really. It's maybe collectivism against individualism, but on a deeper level, fascism is not even the right word for what we're talking about, because they're straight up despotic, dictator, authoritarian. There are other words that are probably more accurate to use that are less about the fascies. The thing about Antifa is their obsession with fascism is actually the proof that they're the closest thing to fascism there is, because no one else even has the same way that the CIA knows Marxism better than college kids. They have a better understanding of fascism than anybody. So they're the only ones who can live up to that. It's the same thing with, like, as we were saying, homophobic homosexuals that beat up kids that aren't actually gay, like the theater kids, basically. And I think that, yes, you were about to say, David, sorry.
No, I agree completely. And also I'm thinking of the fascist symbol of, like, the axe with us all, and also just like your musculature, like your fascia. Like, what are we talking about? Like, it's like if the description is not the described, then what the hell are we even doing? I mean, I don't know. I mean,
we call ourselves the anti-bad guy squad, and we label our opponents as the bad guys. How can people not understand this? We can never be terrorists because we're fighting the bad guys. It's so simple to understand. Everything we do is justified because of our name.
Right. It's that kind of thing.
It's just all such a joke, right? I mean, it's really just a giant joke in our face of, like, look at what you guys are doing, you idiots. And on both sides, like, we're both kind of being shown our shadows on each political side. Like, the people that were getting silenced and censored, were, like, cheering on the same thing that was happening with Jimmy Kimmel the other week. Like, the whole thing, like, this whole, like, political divide is it's just a pendulum going back and forth and showing us how, like, hypocritical we really are.
For real. Yeah.
I think so. I think that's probably the point of it, even, for sure.
the socialism thing in regard to Nazism, I watched that 7+ hour documentary from Hendrix from Red Ice, like way back when. I had to keep pausing it and fact checking it because I was like, is this true? Is this true? A lot of it's fucking bogus. Most of it is bogus, or not just bogus, twisted to fit his narrative that he wanted. But one thing I was unable to disprove was his kind of timeline, big parts of his timeline for Nazi Germany becoming what it became, and how they were able to institute that largely through social programs that really did benefit the people initially, that then shifted to military and kind of what we could now call pseudoscience, right? In terms of some of the particulars around eugenics and what people were basing their rationalizations for what they were doing upon. But I just want to say, like, Germany really wasn't doing well following World War I, and it was very humiliating. And then it was actually socialism that gave them this big boon, and then they directed it all towards these, like, you know, these things that really help people very directly. And then it was like, and then it went way into the military. Like, our military is totally socialist. That's why it gets like a weird conversation when we use these terms like socialism. Like, what are we even talking about? Like, what do you think your fucking federal taxes are, other than socialism? Like, you're paying for the thing. It's just because it's this, somehow it ceases to be socialism. Like, and then people will talk about like it's just government programs. It's, or like, you know, assistant programs and stuff. It's like, when I joined the military, I was obsessed with asking other people why they went into the military, because I knew it was the dumbest and craziest thing that I could have done. Right? You're like Charlie or something.
And this is like pre 9/11, like months before 9/11. But I'm going through, I'm asking everybody, and the thing that stood out to me that was like so ironic is that it was like they needed some kind of health insurance, they needed some sort of a stable income, they wanted to have school in order to go to college. It was literally all the things that a socialist government would be giving to you, but they had to join the military in order to get this.
Yes.
And it was
service guarantee citizenship.
A weird concept.
And that was the thing with my brother. It was like, you know, he had a lot of respect and he had good things to say in large part.
Thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your service.
But when it came to the shit that the recruiter told him and promised him, and how far removed that was from the reality of everything that followed, he's just like,
dude, that's who got me. The recruiters are just allowed to lie. Like, how do you know a recruiter's lying if his mouth is open, essentially?
Totally.
Yeah, but it's service guarantee citizenship. And if you think about the psyop that is presented, you remember in Holy Mountain, Jodorowsky's film, he talks about this astrology group, all the different symbols. And one of them is Mars, and her job is to make toys about wars 10 years before the war hits, so that the kids already have a predisposition to hate a group. And we see this with wrestling and G.I. Joes talking about, you know, the Middle East instead of about East Asia, because we know that's where the war is coming. Right. And then we see things about Asia all of a sudden, because we know that's where the next war is coming. And it happens about 10 years before these kids are ready for battle. I mean, even then, you have in 2001, in August or September, Halo comes out for the Xbox. What's Halo about? It's about a emotionless cyborg super soldier, right? A super soldier who has to fight against a group of aliens, right? Illegal aliens, who all look different and are from different places and different parts of space. They're different species. They look completely different, but they all are sharing one religion, right? They're all, read the back of the Halo Xbox game sometime. It's telling you exactly what the Iraq War is going to be about in a few years. And I mean, do you know anybody who fought in the Iraq War who didn't play Halo, Thomas?
Where I was actually, when I joined, it was all Counter-Strike. This is early 2000s.
Because if you really wanted to meet Osama bin Laden, because we know now that his favorite game besides Final Fantasy VII was, and he was Cal-I. He was high rated in Counter-Strike. So if you were Cal-I, oh yeah, he loved Final Fantasy VII and he loved Counter-Strike.
Are you sure that he didn't just do the Elon Musk and pay somebody to play it and then take credit for it? No,
no, because when they went through his computer, and we can read the paperwork about it, I think Newsweek, right? He was Counter-Strike 1.6 was the version he had on his main computer, and he was using it a lot, and we tracked his IP address, and apparently he was in the high rank. It was one of, I mean, the dude was a computer expert, right? Like, have you seen Osama bin Laden young?
And he was
suit?
torrenting and news grouping and like doing all the things, man.
Was he really Tim Osman? Like, is that a real thing, or is that like fake news?
I don't know the facts about that for sure. I mean, it's all a question, really, like what's true or not. But I mean, he definitely
How many
famous
Osama
and
bin Ladens
wealthy.
were there? Right, there could have been like 4 or 5 of them.
It's a way better question,
Do you
really.
remember when there's
But
like
he loved Final Fantasy.
thing where people were just sharing his manifesto or whatever, or his whole like his explanation for 9/11, and there's like all these people on TikTok that were just like fully agreeing with it because it aligned with like the current like leftist position. They're just like, actually, Osama bin Laden was like really cool. It's like one of us. Oh man.
Yeah, the same way that AI started translating Hitler speeches, and kids are like, "Have you heard what he said?" Like, I didn't know that he was. You know what? That's how they get you. You don't translate something for long enough, then you start to get into it when you get the access. What do you say, sorry?
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, the operation that killed Osama bin Laden, wasn't that called like Operation Neptune Spear or something? I thought that was interesting because that's like Neptune and the relationship with the ocean and stuff, and how they dumped him how they supposedly just dumped his body in the ocean with no evidence.
It's hard to believe any of that story. Although I kind of do believe the SEAL team, like the meal that they ate that's in that movie Friendship with Tim Robinson, like that's probably real. They probably ate like that. You know, I don't know if you know.
Osama bin Laden Operation Neptune. How many Osama bin Laden Operation Neptune spear agents or officers have come out as transgender? 4.
Seriously?
Yeah. Kristen Beck is the most famous. Chris Beck, Navy SEAL, who retired and transitioned, and then later detransitioned, apparently. Team SEAL 6, Dev Grew. I mean, when you start to look into that, it gets really interesting to me. Like, why are so many people? Okay, sure, maybe. All right.
Oh man.
I got another thing about Mormons too, if you're ready.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Jump back to it. Okay, so like you're talking about targeted attacks, right, earlier, and eugenics and everything. Do you know that Utah Mormons are some of the people to suffer more than Siberians and Ukrainians do from radiation poisoning? Like the people from Chernobyl have less radiation poisoning than people from Utah. Did you know that?
No.
So this is a fun one. I should bring it up more often. So the Nevada test site, right? And you've probably seen pictures, and you maybe in school knew that somewhere in the middle of America, somewhere in the desert.
Burning Man.
Yeah, in Burning Man, essentially, right? This
Close,
is just outside of Black Rock City.
Next door to where they do Burning Man. It's actually technically the same dried lake bed, but yeah.
Oh, wow, that's interesting, David.
Oh, yeah, Black Rock is right over there, I think. I got it. Black Rock City. Let's do a map, make it easy to see. But yeah, essentially in this pentagon in the middle of the desert, in this kind of weird halo half circle. Where's my
there's a map there that shows you like basically where
okay, so if this is like if they're exposed to so much radiation, do you think this is the reason for their magical underwear? Like, do you think it protects their genitals somehow?
Well, technically they had magic underwear before this, but you better hope that something's going to help you, because look at, this is the iodine 131 deposits from the 1953 A test. And here's up in Black Rock, but that's Nevada, right? Here's Utah right there. And Utah has, especially in South Utah, but also in North, generally just the whole area, some of the worst radiation and iodine 131 deposits in the country, right? It's the most dangerous place. It is literally the most dangerous place if you're afraid of iodine 131 deposits. And this is where, what's his name? The famous cowboy, John Wayne. John Wayne got radiation poisoning from filming and died, right? Because of the nuclear tests. And there's a website, I think, called the Downwinders. Oh, the access to the site's been limited by the owner.
Hey, you know what's crazy too is that Marilyn Monroe filmed her last film, The Misfits, at what was now Black Rock City. But she was out there for like weeks and weeks and weeks, and like in the hot sun or whatever was a factor. Like it was really hard on her. And so the other guy, Clark Gable, he died right after filming, and then she died shortly after that. He was quite old. She had medical issues to begin with, but the truth is that was early 60s, right? Like this is not that long after the A-bomb testing that occurred right in that spot. So, and she bathes in Pyramid Lake in that movie. Like it's just it's not out of the question that among many things that were probably affecting Marilyn Monroe, one of them is just that she was like right in like the hotbed of a place that had just done radiation testing not that long before.
Just really quickly to answer Piano Gigger, why are so many Mormons in Utah? Well, the whole point is after Joseph Smith was assassinated, Brigham Young took over the church and marched them out of Missouri. And again, Missouri was where the Missouri, about Missouri Extermination Order 44. So the Mormon were executed, genocided. The governor of Missouri actually, kind of like Star Wars, he had Executive Order 44 to kill as many women and children of the Mormons, like all the men and women and children that they could. And they were shooting.
Is a kill number, by the way.
Yeah, it's also kind of, I think, where Star Wars gets Execute Order 66. It seems like against the Jedi, it's like a reference maybe to an extent.
MLK was killed on 4/4.
Yeah, and it's October 27th, 1938. Missouri Governor Lilburn Boggs, in response to the Battle of Crooked River, ended up ordering the genocide of all of the Mormon people. We've made war upon the people of Missouri. The Mormons must be treated as enemies and must be exterminated or driven from the state if necessary for the public peace. Their outrages are beyond all description, right? Because generally there were just more and more Mormons. They were producing families healthfully, and it was very clear that pretty soon they would be able to outvote within a generation any other Masonic government and replace it. And so they were formed to be executed, right?
Mormons. What do you think the Mons means in the Mormons?
Which part?
The Mons.
Oh, well,
Mons. Like I associate Mon words with the moon or money. Well, I associate money with the moon too. So
I mean, they think Mormon is the name of somebody, but it's interesting if you think about the Moorish sciences, right? Because Freemasonry is the Moorish sciences. And so like the Moorish sciences, like the Masonic men or something. But really they're saying, Joseph Smith says that it was Moroni and Mormon, and these are people from, the history of the Book of Mormon. They're talking about, a history of if you read the Book of Mormon, it's pretty interesting, this idea that there are Jews that escaped before the Deuteronomic exodus of the Babylonian Talmuds, when the Jews go to Babylon and the destruction of the first temple, that right before that this group goes to the Americas, and that they're a successful Jewish community which even have pyramids, and they're spread across the North and South hemisphere. But then secret combinations, aka secret societies, start to develop, and then they take over from the inside, destroy their own civilization. And after a fashion, the people left in the Western Hemisphere are people that were part of this destruction of their civilization, of these basically secret society groups. So there's a direct analogy to Freemasonry as being this thing that destroyed the Americas before and might be something that's going to destroy America again. And I think this is also like interesting to think about the Jesuits being excommunicated from the Catholic Church. That's when the Masons become so powerful. And once they're back in charge of the Catholic Church, they start to try to dismantle Freemasonry. And you have the anti-Masonic hysteria around the same time as the resurgence of the Jesuits in the Catholic Church.
Well, when you say the Masons destroyed America first and they're going to destroy it again, but not unless we get our numbers back up, because the membership between then and now is ridiculous. It's
Right.
like a
It's
like
just
a
Catholics
full
and
order of
Freemasons.
magnitude.
Yeah.
Right. And even the Catholic Church is smaller too.
Why is that, Thomas?
It's a combination of a feeling of joinerism that was really prevalent in the mid 1900s here in this country, where everyone had to be in a Moose Lodge or a Masonic Lodge or a something. And the other two things, one is life insurance started to become a thing that was first offered through jobs, then all jobs. For a long time, Freemasonry acted as like one of these life insurance companies. If you listen to enough talk radio, you've probably heard like Christian variations of this, where it's like you buy into this pool, and then if you run into hard times or you have a problem, then like this pool just pays out to you because it's like a good Christian community that's saving their money for each other. Well, that was Freemasonry. And then when insurance companies and jobs took that role over, the final death blow in my mind was probably LinkedIn, where now in order to vet that somebody wasn't lying to you and they actually had credibility and that like they were an upstanding citizen, you can kind of just look through their LinkedIn or call up their references. So those three factors got like changing the landscape, I think decimated Freemasonry forever.
There's another factor as well, which is that if you go to travel anywhere, almost anywhere in the US, you have a place to stay. You don't need to get a hotel. They'll take care of you. So,
but you had a war. You had a war of Protestants against Catholics, and then Freemasons were, ubiquitous until the 1820s. In the 1820s, you have the anti-Masonic hysteria because of William Morgan. And you have the Jacksonian Democrats. So the Jacksonian Democrats are the Masonic Democrats under Andrew Jackson. So James Polk and everything. And by the 1860s, you have the Irish potato famine, which is exporting Irish Catholics into the United States. And so more and more Catholics come to the United States, and there's a bigger push to replace the Freemasons with Catholics. Except there's also a transition because the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants who control the Skull and Bones, the Yale societies, the CIA, they're all of a sudden working with the Vatican, the Jesuits in the Vatican, in order to destroy the Reich and to take over the places that Freemasons had been so important in the United States. And so I think there's something to be said for when the Catholic Church was upset with the Jesuits, right? There's a thing called the Jesuit excommunication, where the Jesuits were all kicked out of the Catholic Church. And they lost control over all of South America. And anyone who was a Jesuit priest, they were kicked out. Well, that's when the Freemasons become the most powerful, during the 18th century, 1700s, when the Jesuits aren't allowed to be part of the Catholic Church. And at a certain point, they come back and take over the Catholic Church. But when I think there's a connection there, which is while they're outside of the Catholic Church, they're strengthening the Freemasons. And I think really that's the Jesuit connection to the Freemasons. And eventually they don't need them anymore.
Is there a connection between the 45, 47, the 47th problem of Euclid? I don't know.
47 is the angle for the Freemasons.
Right now, there's
which isn't necessarily true.
You don't think
What's
so?
that?
No, absolutely not. I've actually done a pretty deep dive on that. I don't know if I can find. I should highlight it on my.
I didn't know. I didn't hear you, Andreas. You said you made a statement, and you're saying no.
Well, that the Masonic compass is 47 degrees, but really there's 5 or 6 different degrees in which the Masonic compass is shown and all of its variations, and I don't think any of them are 47 degrees. They get close, but I don't think any of them actually hit 47. Or 33 for that matter.
This is the paper to read right here. I mean, I've read this long. That's been up for a long time. But yeah, just the particulars around. Ooh, yeah. But
if you take this picture and you actually overlay a digital protractor on top of it, that's not 47 degrees.
All right, but can you debunk this? Because I'm pretty
sure.
I
cannot. This one's a little bit harder to squirrel yourself out.
It took some creative liberty with the Y on that one. I'm telling
you. All right, yeah. So you were going to say something about this because we're back to Euclid and Pythagoras here.
No, this is it's just if you want to go into that almost Back to the Future, connecting to Donald Trump, high weirdness stuff. The 47th problem of Euclid feels like this big missing component that's a bit too complex to lay out, and like we almost have to dedicate a simple show into like a whole show into like a deep dive. It's not so simple, but yeah, I don't know. I and see that there's the magic square element in this too. So it's like it relates to like the idea of like the Tower of Babel being like how these ancient Babylonian squares like fit with each other, and like how all like the 36 square mile grids of cities across the world in the United States like are kind of like tied into this like ancient magical system that is the origin of math and language at the same time, you know, like
Joseph Smith had this this talisman right in his pocket.
Oh,
this
did he?
is allegedly
There
this is something he died with allegedly. Didn't have magic underwear on when he died, but he did have his talisman, which has Jupiter and it has a magic square.
Yeah. Well, that's the magic square of Jupiter, which is why it has the alchemical symbol for Jupiter under it, which people say is an amalgamation of a 4 and a 2, interestingly enough. But
47 spells God, right? With like the Hebrew dash between the, I guess, leaving out the vowel.
What's that?
Go to a cult code.
You're saying Tetragrammaton is Gematria is 26, but yeah. You're not looking at. Are you talking about the Hebrew? Are you, Anna? Are you talking about the Hebrew?
I mixed it up. I meant like it spells dog, right? Like if you did like D/G.
Oh, I see what you're saying with the dash. Okay. Oh, yeah. Well, that would be a 4 and a 7. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I posted a link in the private chat, so don't roll your eyes too hard. But one of them is 46 degrees and the other one's 48 degrees. So technically no 47, but I don't know. With margin of error, maybe we do have a couple examples of 47.
I think there was 47 stories in Building 7.
Oh. Well, that's interesting. Wow, that is kind of interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, a 47-story building.
Oh, wow.
Wow. It's on Wikipedia.
Oh, geez.
47 stories tall. Trapezoidal footprint. That's pretty interesting. Right. That's really strange. That's crazy. Yeah, well, okay. So we got nuclear testing site. I think there's a reason why they decided to destroy Utah. And this also was brought up in someone brought up in the chat Skinwalker Ranch, and you know about that, right? That there's a space-time anomalous place that people have creepy, like the Mormon Area 51, or I'm sure there's some better way to describe it, but that there's this area called Skinwalker Ranch that a techno billionaire from Utah has purchased, and they're trying to do experiments, and it's on the History Channel, to try to understand what's up with the unexplained phenomena and these strange out of time or out of dimension X like characters that are in Skinwalker Ranch, right? So that's you know, I think there's something very strange.
It was originally purchased by Robert Bigelow, right? And he was the one that like he's kind of like the suspicious guy who comes in and like pretends he's investigating paranormal activity, and then he like hides all the information.
Yeah.
And so when he like got everything he from Skinwalker Ranch, he sold it.
And he sold it and he moved off from it, but probably took anything he could. Maybe he found what he needed and he left it, right? Like he probably got whatever he needed to get out of that. Or there's something crazy underground. Who knows?
I'm thinking of Joe Alexander's video too. Not just the back,
which is back to South Park, too, right?
But he's got Joe Alexander had a video on the nuclear testing and how it relates to Back to the Future and this whole crazy thing. Yeah. Remember that one with the Gray's Almanac, and he was just saying that what was the location was called Gray's? What is it? There's a correspondence between the Grays and the testing site for Trinity. Yeah. Is it Trinity? Well, I forget the particulars. I'm not going to do it justice.
The Trinity site is like in the desert of death too. Like that's the translation in sorry.
I become death. It's like the site itself.
Let me look. I wrote it down at one point. It caught my eye and I was like, what?
Also, isn't there something with Bigelow and South Park credits at the end of am I mixing something up at the end of South Park?
What are you saying? No, I don't know.
They always show at the end of South Park, the sky is blue. They show that kind of end credit sequence, and it has, like a. Hold on, let me see.
Okay, I got it wrong.
Oh,
the Trinity test took place on the 33rd parallel in the Jornada de Muerto, which means journey of the dead man.
Journey of the Dead Man. Wow.
That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, I'm mixing up South Park Braniff Airlines with Bigelow Aerospace, because Bigelow had an aerospace company. But if you type South Park Braniff at the end of every South Park episode, they show this Braniff logo. Right. Yeah.
Is it like a mix of like Branson and someone? Like, is this a spoof of?
Braniff was a international airways company in the 80s and 90s that shut down.
It was a
and
real
I guess
thing.
they use it for their production company. They just took over the logo because they bought the company somehow for that use. So, but not related to Bigelow. So completely off on that. Well, okay. So yeah, I think it's weird that that this has happened. That there's been an ex-Mormon who assassinated Charlie Kirk allegedly, and that there's an ex-Mormon who's done this driving into the church and lighting it on fire and murdering.
His mother was a member, right, at that church. Isn't that the story? The guy who rammed it. I mean, it's all breaking, so who knows? But
yeah, I haven't looked into it yet. The only thing is, I said, like, the MK Ultra audacity of having the 2 American flags in the back of a truck. Just to me, it's interesting because they're saying that I'm sure the left are going to say the right are doing it because they've got these American flags. So clearly he must be an American right-wing, MAGA-loving patriot, right? If he's got these flags. And then the right are going to say the opposite. They're going to say, oh, this is an ex-Mormon who's woke and he's probably got some trans girlfriend or so, because that's what they've been doing with the other guys. This is what we're pitched.
Well, I got a crazy wackadoo conspiracy theory for this one. Okay, if you'll hear me out.
Okay.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So, is anyone here familiar with PatCon, the concept of PatCon? If not, I can give a quick refresher. So, assuming someone out there listening isn't familiar, PatCon is allegedly this FBI program that was put together in the 1980s or so, and essentially it was like throw some fuel onto the fire of like these white national militant groups, and it eventually leads into your Ruby Ridges and Wacos and Oklahoma cities. That specifically Waco and Oklahoma City were PatCon operations to varying degrees, and this is essentially alphabet agencies infiltrating these extremist groups and just kind of like pushing them, giving them extra resources, giving them extra information, kind of setting things up and then letting them do all of the actual work. Well, if that was the 80s and 90s version of PatCon, the next logical conclusion of all this, and let's say that PatCon wasn't an intelligence operation. Let's say it was actually militias getting together and extremists, and they're trying to figure out how to cause like civil war and race wars in the country, right? Well, we're at the point now where they would be sophisticated enough to be like, all right, let's start doing our own false flags. What if the extremist groups false flagged themselves and blamed it on the opposition as that they saw it? Well, if this is an actual PatCon operation, this is now super meta. This is basically state agents acting as if they're extremists, and then in that acting as extremists are now doing false flags, playing as an extremist. And I don't know, it seems that this is a new interesting track that they're on, and it's not just like 1 + 2 = 3 linear math anymore. We're kind of doing like nonlinear algebra.
Well, there keeps being this repeated thing. I don't know how applicable this is, but there's like the calls coming from inside the house kind of phenomenon. So like that kid who shot up the Christian school in Minneapolis or whatever, like that kid, like he went to that school. His mother was a teacher at that school. Like, so when people are like, oh, they're killing Christians now, it's like he came from that, apparently. Like, whether or not he's, a Manchurian type of direct, like, that's not, I watched his whole 30-minute thing. I think I told you guys, but it's like, oh my God, this is insane. But then you look at like Charlie Kirk, it's like, well, he came from a MAGA family. So, and it's like, oh, does anyone rebel against their families? Like, that's always been an issue I had with like the treatment of like Jim Morrison. Well, he came from a military family. So clearly his whole career was a military psyop. I'm like, okay, I'm sorry, I can't get on board with that. I need a little bit more evidence that, but it's like,
I mean, the Rush Limbaugh part was kind of okay. Go ahead.
But this keeps happening. It's like where, I don't know. It feels like that is false flag, even if it's not, even if you don't even have an alphabet agency being directly involved, it's still a false flag of sorts because the call is coming from inside the thing. But then at the same time, yeah. Oh, is that? Thank you. Okay. Clearly.
I mean, if Rush Limbaugh isn't Jim Morrison, then Alex Jones isn't Bill Hicks. I don't know what you can't have both. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. The timing seems a little weird, but I'm open to it.
I mean, how about Jimi Hendrix and Morgan Freeman? Okay, fine.
What about like clones or templates or whatever? What do you think of that, Andreas?
I mean, what's that movie recently? Like with Jamie Foxx, Tyrone got cloned. Did you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think there's a lot. I mean, the Island Boys and Epstein, and the whole thing with Clonaid, right? Are you familiar with Clonaid? Yeah, and Eve in Israel. I think that we've been cloning for a pretty long time, probably since before I was born, and that there's been a lot of the IVF treatment is to facilitate easier cloning until we finally get the proper Japanese incubation machines so that you don't need a human host to clone with, right?
Jake Kotza has a new video pointing out something that seems so obvious, but he's talking about Lord of the Rings and how, you had Fellowship of the Ring and then you had the Two Towers, and the way that if you look at the film's relationships, the release of the film versions from Peter Jackson in relationship to 9/11, and how he was making the argument that he's like, okay, well, the Two Towers connection's obvious as far as 9/11 goes, but he's like, had more people who's considered that even the title, The Lord of the Rings, 911 is you call for an emergency, and it's your phone ringing, and he was like, what is the number that would be the Lord of the Rings, like the ringing telephone would be 911. So I was like, it hadn't really occurred to me, and then I was like thinking to myself, well, isn't the, like when you were talking about like, my trilogy kicks your trilogy's ass, whether it's Back to the Future or Lord of the Rings, you have Star Wars, and in the prequels, that the first one and the second one of the prequels bookend 9/11, like you had 1999, and you have everything that happens to be Attack of the Clones. And Attack of the Clones is very relatable to the Two Towers. If you think of the Two Towers as like Yakin and Boaz, is that one is cloning the other, but the clone isn't the same as the original, right? So like when you say established and then the other tower is in strength, and you're like, this pillar is pointing back at the other pillar, there's something to be said about the nature of cloning being that when you clone something, it's not the same. And even like the treatment of the Klipot kabbalistically is that they're mirroring tetragrammaton, but in a distorted way, because you can't actually have it be the thing. So if you're replicating something, it's not going to be the same. So I was just tripping out on like the Phantom Menace is totally about false flag terrorism, and then Attack the Clones is like, like if you're to look at that as kind of like follow the allegory through, like in terms of 9/11, it like makes weird kind of sense that the army itself is just a repeated cloning. It's like, it's kind of like that is the false strength or whatever. Like it's a relative strength. It's another god. Kind of a trip.
Think it's hilarious that the only like public clone they ever gave us was a sheep. Like in terms of the symbolism of like what a sheep represents.
And then she's named Dolly too, and the significance of Dolly and the Dalai Lama, and talking about like Aleister Crowley, like his whole thing with like Iowas as it relates to the Dalai Lama. Lam is the same root word as Lama, like the Dalai Lama. So like his character, the gray alien, talking about the grays, like that's so weird.
Begun, the clown war has, right? Attack of the Clowns.
It makes it so good because he's so serious in the shot, like the serious, it's like there's a sad clown, but then there's the angry Yoda clown. I like it.
Oh, it's so real. Yeah, I think they did give us some other clones, right? But that was the one that everyone knows about. They basically
What about Eve? What about the Raelians Eve?
Yeah, like Fox, the place that announced that's Fox. So that I think that's interesting. And then it's a court trial about Eve happened in Florida, right, where they wanted a missing persons proof of her existence in Florida, and they basically denied its existence. And Epstein's, the Island Boys thing with Epstein's involvement with the Raelians, with Clonaid, with a number of other sperm bank and genetic adenoviral companies.
Shit. What about the boys from Brazil? You know about the boys from Brazil? Yeah, where they can make all the Hitler clones.
I know that Joseph Mengele lives in Argentina and Brazil. My dentist, my accountant knows. Why are you calling at this hour? Yeah.
Have you ever heard the connection there of the Dignity Colony that this lady named Rebecca Schaefer, who was the daughter of Paul Schaefer, and that Paul Schaefer was the new name of one of these other like high-ranking SS scientists, and that he was kind of the underground Mengele that went and started Dignity Colony.
Well, again, it's an interesting thing when you look at the James Jesus Angleton connection, because you have the OSS compatible with Paperclip, and then you don't. Things are totally cool before the 1950s. By the late 1950s, 1960s, now you have a bunch of para-Mossad agents in the CIA that know exactly where Hitler and all these people are in South America. And all of a sudden, these connections that used to keep them safe are exactly the things that are causing fires in the night to burn down their houses and kill the mothers and daughters of these former SS Dragonovich agents, right? Because there was like about 1 million people, maybe. There's 300,000 SS soldiers and German officers who, through the Dragonovich trail, ended up in South America, and their families, right? So you have to imagine probably about 1 million people, like a wife and a kid at least for most of them, and maybe like more than that.
I got a bunch of messages recently from Brittany, who's trying to look into Project Paperclip, and she was saying like she's tripping out on like, this idea that we think of NASA, like all these Nazi scientists and NASA attached to Project Paperclip, but she was like, do we know like the full degree of like where some of these Nazi scientists ended up in like different areas? Because it's not like it's just aerospace. She was like, has anyone like laid out like the particulars around like, because it's always, they downplayed how many it was. We know that of like how many Nazi scientists were actually like taken in, but she was like big pharma. She's like naming all these different avenues that they could have been worked into. Thomas, it seems like an area you'd be super hip to. I don't know. I didn't know an answer for as to like, is there a resource where we can find all the names of all the people from Project Paperclip and precisely where they ended up and what they ended up doing? Oh, you're muted.
Was it how much do you trust the state?
Is that what it is? In order
it kind of comes down to that. It's the same. It's similar to like we only know as much about MK Ultra as we do is because allegedly somebody forgot to burn a room full of records that was then found that led to like the church hearings. And if it weren't for that one room and that one secretary walking into the wrong place, would we have any information about MK Ultra whatsoever?
Right. So that feels like the thing, and that's relatable to like blackmail stuff too. It's like if you hear about this at all, the very nature of the thing suggests that this is the tip of the iceberg.
I would throw this too, like us importing German scientists after World War II. It almost plays into this narrative of that we imported evil. We took these horrible eugenicists from a foreign, from Europe, and we imported them here, and oh my God, now they're here, like infiltrating our ranks. But really, the entire eugenics movement was here in America first. It was just sort of like private industry, financially incentivized to individuals. When it found its way over to Germany, it wasn't
just private. Dude, I used to drive. Oh God, the Napa hospital. My dad, my dad's family in Napa. There's so much. When you know what they did to Basque people, they just sterilized all the Basque people. It was not. I mean, when the Nuremberg trials happened, and they said, "How could you do what you did?" They're like, "We were just trying to catch up with California."
What? Where did they sterilize Basque people? That's my
all across California on your Basque.
Yeah.
Epic. Basques are so cool. Did you know that Basques have the same grammar as Japanese people? It's like there's
No.
no explanation for it. It's pretty rad.
Oh my god, I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Basque are based. Basque Republic. Straight up respect. But yeah, basically they sterilize Basque people across California.
Well, Basques have a high rate of the Rh negative blood type, which is like yeah, it's like the alien blood.
You know, I mean, that's pretty good.
You said it, not us.
Yeah, there's something about that. There's something pretty interesting.
What is happening right now? Spain is sending a warship behind the flotilla and Greta's been like removed from her authority position, and it's like Muslim Brotherhood and people and all this whole thing that like what is going on right now with those? It's like 50 boats. Like, I mean, my God,
I didn't hear this part. You haven't shown me this. Oh, also, yeah, Kirkovich. Did you know that they just the Serbs love Charlie Kirk because he grew up in a Serbian neighborhood in Arlington Heights, and so he played for the Beli Orlovi White Eagles team, and they called him Kirkovich growing up. So, yeah, so Belgrade just made a huge new mural to him. Okay, Spain and what boats?
Yes. So my understanding is that it's 50 boats from 44 countries that have joined. Now they've left Greece. In the next 2 days, they're supposed to approach Gaza. So there was it wasn't really a flotilla last time. So like she had a boat and she got picked up by the Israelis. They gave her a sandwich and a blanket, and she was there with her frog hat.
Gotcha.
She's still there with her frog hat, but she's been removed from her leadership position with the group. So they basically like these people have taken over whatever it was that they were trying to do, and now I guess Spain has sent behind them a warship just in case if something happens. So it's like it feels like they really want to instigate a further like their own kind of.
I hate to do this because like people are going to think I'm picking sides. I'm just going to point out that the whole thing with the Israelis blowing up her ship, I totally thought it was true, but I saw footage of it.
It sure looks like a flare.
They blew up their own boat by accident, perhaps. Maybe they did
looked like a flare. I'll tell you what, if this was a drone, dude, they wouldn't be there. If this was really a drone attack from Israel, they would be toast. There's no way. Yeah. Israel isn't Wile E. Coyote, and they're not the Roadrunner in this scenario. Like that's not how it goes. I'm sorry. Like so, this whole thing of like, well, we we foiled that attempt. You know, like nah.
I do think it's interesting that North Korea threatened to nuke Tel Aviv. I mean, did you have North Korea, defending Greta on your bingo card? No. I should have though because of her hairstyle. Like once I saw. Like honestly, the bangs are so North Korean that it's I mean it meets feudal peasant, but there's something about that, man.
I mean, the emissions of these boats. I mean, I don't know how she's. I guess it's for the greater good. So I don't know.
Yeah.
You got to break a few eggs for a Greta omelet.
You make it that omelet. Yeah. Oh man.
But it does. If Spain is a member of the NATO, what happens if Israel really? Weapons are used on the ship. If Israel fires at a NATO vessel,
that's the thing.
It's a chess move. You know what I mean? It could
very much so. So they're like, bring it. And this is supposed to just be a humanitarian thing. And the last time with what happened with Israel, they gave them free plane tickets. It was a very respectful thing. I'm sure it's really embarrassing for everybody involved. That they were just like, because it made them feel like kids. They're just like, oh well, yeah. I guess we tried, but yeah.
I don't know, dude. Just like everything about her just seems like beyond psyop. It's just the crazy. I mean, obviously, but it's just the craziest possible thing that they would start. That Greta could be the single thing that could actually move the pieces into World War III officially, or whatever we're calling it, World War V now. I don't even know where we're at. That it could be Greta. Greta could literally be in charge. She could be taught of in history books as the reason why World War III happened. I just think that's crazy, man.
Well, just like the girl that fixed the Cold War, right? Because she wrote a letter to Reagan and whoever else. She saved us. She saved the entire world.
You saved the day.
I'm not doing my due diligence by promoting F-Chat enough. I hope you guys are in F-Chat. The people that are posting about chemtrails in the 1600s and where to get your better AI. They were recommending to use black box AI, which is the AI for builders or something. It's a kind of a, I think I wonder if this is Black Cube or Black Rock, or has a very Israeli vibe to me. Could be wrong. I'll look into it a little bit more, but thanks for posting that. I wanted to also address where did I put that? There was a grok question here posed on pharmaceutical vaccinologists involved with the Reich, and Kurt Bloom was the director of the Nazi biological warfare program. Was recruited.
It's actually Blow Me.
I was going to say it, but then I was just like, be respectful.
Yeah,
to
right.
Andreas,
To
be respectful to Andreas.
Dude, no, to be respectful to the SS officers, bro.
He was highly respected. I mean, he was ranked.
That is the most 2025 moment I've ever been part of. Okay. Oh my God. All right. Recruited in 47. He worked on anthrax, typhoid, cholera, plague pathogens, tested on prisoners. Walter Schreiber, Brigadier General in the Wehrmacht Medical Service, focused on epidemiology, infectious diseases, prevention and defense against biological warfare, brought in 51, worked at the RAND Corporation. Eric Traub, virologist specializing in animal viruses, allegedly recruited in 49. Sources vary on exact path. Animal Disease Center, founding figure at Plum Island, and U.S. Biowarfare Lab, focused on animal pathogens, linked to fringe theories like Lyme's disease origin. So yeah, that seems cool. There's something to be said about that. I would definitely recommend going deeper into that rabbit hole. I bet you there's a lot to be said about SS Paperclip scientists doing more than just building rockets, right?
Right.
And children's shows.
True. But that's important to look into too.
Yeah. That's like
if people are concerned with the ratio of Jews in Hollywood versus Jews in the world, you should be even more concerned with the ratio of children's shows hosts that are from Paperclip, because that's an even smaller ratio, a smaller niche.
Yeah,
right.
The idea, for some reason, like saying that Nazis control Hollywood or the media or the government, like, doesn't seem to bother people nearly as much as I think it should.
Well, we've been through the Bush presidency, a few of them, right?
Yeah, fair enough. Did I cut you off, Anna? I thought you were about to say something. I'm sorry.
No, I was not.
Okay. Well, is there anything else you guys wanted to cover? Because we're like 2 hours deep, and
I don't know if David was going to try and justify any more of the SS officers. If there's anyone else you want to like
fair
put up
enough.
on a before we go here.
How about a moment of silence for? Yeah, no, God, my God, bro.
if Andreas had a Freudian slip and wanted to say "blow me," I was just gonna be like, okay, we're just moving forward. It's just whatever. But yeah, no,
no. Someone put up, a serious man put up the meme. I shouldn't have come. Oh, bro. Wait,
that
there it is. Right
you guys read Sinister Forces? Oh, there you go.
Yeah, Peter Levenda.
Yeah, have you read that? Do you remember that there's? Yeah. Okay. Do you remember that there's a part in there where he's talking about the Nazis that we hired for the there was some launch of a rocket that he shared this story about how they sent it to Mexico. The Nazis sent the space rocket to Mexico in their coordinates, and it killed like a bunch of people in Mexico. And the Mexican government freaked out and thought for a second that America was attacking Mexico. And that so supposedly there was a phone call that had to happen with, I believe, the president of the United States and the president of Mexico, where we had to explain, no, you're not under attack. It was the Nazi scientists that were working for us that sent a rocket over to you guys against our will. Like, that was apparently a real conversation that took place. It's just
it was a V2 rocket. I don't know if it was like a specific named one, but
okay.
And they blamed it on the gyroscope malfunction, and it hit like 3 miles outside of a major city like Jalisco or something.
I thought it killed like 300 people or something. I can't remember. I'd have to read it again. It's been a while. This is a long time ago I read that, but yeah, no, you would seem to remember, so I'll take your word for it. This may be how I retained it is slightly different than what I read. It's been so long.
I don't know
but
if people died. I know that they definitely had to have a stern talk about why are missiles showing up coming from the U.S.
Yeah. It must have been a
cities.
crazy conversation to have to be like, whoa, and like us trying to cover for it. Like, oh fuck, man, they're
It
not
was
doing
on a
what
goof,
they're
guys,
supposed to
on
do.
a goof.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild. So
The Nazis we hired aren't cooperating. It's as though they don't care about America. I don't know.
So let's see, 1947 crashed near Ciudad Juarez, Mexico.
Juarez, that's right, not Jalisco.
Wow, the off-course missile. That's interesting. I didn't know this story. So let's see, 1947 off-course V2 just misses Juarez. Dang, man, that could have been bad. I guess
Does it have deaths, or am I tripping? I can't remember.
Dead. Hit.
Casualty.
Luckily, it did not hit a populated area. The missile
Okay.
did not carry explosives and did not hit a populated area.
Yeah, this is the problem when I read something and then years later try and recount it, because in my head I was like, oh yeah, all these people, but yeah, no,
But it created a crater that was 50 feet wide and 24 feet deep.
Jesus, yeah.
So, I mean, that seems like a pretty good like warning. Like, what can we do with this stuff? Well, anything you want, bro. You're in charge now. That's crazy, man. That's crazy. I'll have to dig into that story a bit deeper. All right, let's go to paranoidamerican.com. Check out what's going on there. What's going on over here?
Yes, we got all kinds of stuff. The biggest one are these paranoid pamphlets. I'm leaning all the way in. This is the latest one. Is at illuminaticomic.com. It'll just bring you right here to this page. And this is a full breakdown of the entire history of the Bavarian Illuminati into modern times, into 2025 and Lady Gaga and MTV Music Awards and all of that. And like we actually tie all the different notes together here without just complete speculation. So if you want the most comprehensive and fact-filled, double source checked take on the Bavarian Illuminati, this is the only place you can get it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, I love this one so much. Yeah, and there's a bunch of important things I would recommend. Also, the chemtrail, connecting the dots, great for families. Also, Frazzle Drip Funhouse. I'm going to explain in a second, but if you have kids or you want to be explained to what geoengineering is like a 5-year-old, this book's going to really be interesting in like a few minutes, because as time progresses and people are more and more, yeah, of course we use geoengineering and like
It's
what
ahead of time, man. This is a book is ahead of its time.
Dude.
And
yeah.
well, the original, the first premise of this book was that I was so sick of having to explain how obvious chemtrails are a real thing. They're fully documented. They're in government documentation. They're in patents. It's like a job you can have in Texas as a cloud seeder. So all this is so obviously real, but I would get lectured online and get lectured in person of people are like, what are you talking about, this crazy chemtrail stuff? So the original version of this book, not the version you're looking at now, but the original one, it was such a condescending, like hitting you over the head, like, let me treat you like you were a literal 5-year-old and explain chemtrails to you. But the farther I got into it, the more I was like, bro, this is basically a cooler version of Magic School Bus. So I sort of took away the snark and the condescension, and I turned it into like a legitimate children's book that was teaching you science.
I like
You
that.
know,
Right.
the only people that really don't bother me, like when they talk to me like I'm a third grader, is the Matt Stone and Trey Parker. Like they can do that where they're just like, let me just talk to you like you're a freaking idiot, and like their audience. And I'm like, no, you go ahead, do it. But I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, you guys have seen. I kind of in the same vein made my own thumbnail for the Disney declassified weather control video.
This is a real photo here, isn't it, of Mickey and Bugs?
Dude, you know, the cameos for Mickey are pretty hardcore. Because I mean, I don't know if people realize how much that they cross the divide from Warner Brothers to Disney, and they still love each other, right? This is the way Americans should behave. But if you watch Disney declassified Cold War weather control and geoengineering on my channel, this is an old declassified video that Disney put up to teach people what they could do with weather control machines after the war. And they said, well, hey, if there's a storm coming, it's going to hit some godforsaken place like Florida, you know, they have enough trouble there. So why don't we just shoot laser beams and rockets into that storm and move it someplace else? And it's pretty fascinating how they kind of simulate what we can do with weather control technology, and how pretty soon there just won't be a reason to worry about hurricanes anymore, because we can direct hurricane, unless you're an enemy of the United States, of course. Because if we can push it off the coast, we can push it right into your region, Che Guevara or Hugo Chavez or Fidel Castro or Vladimir Putin, whatever. Anybody who upsets the United States, we can direct a storm into your zone. So I would recommend definitely watching that if you want to see like early weather control explanations from Disney directly, you know. Pretty based. Okay. And then frazzle drip, because, you know, it's not like Hillary Clinton still exists, guys. It's not over.
Well, this comic was my way of getting the word frazzle drip into the public sphere in a way that could maybe be snuck in through the back door. So this one is listed on, or it was listed on Amazon. I think I have to put it back up there. But it was listed on Amazon and went under the radar on like Kickstarter and Indiegogo. Like, it's been in mainstream places. And I just think it's part of normalizing this word. And I guess the original concept before we even had the story together was, hey, what if we had a comic in a comic shop where a kid has to say, Mommy, what does frazzle drip mean? And just the fact that you could be the catalyst for that conversation, we were like, let's make this into a comic. This is me and my friend at Wing Sun Comics, Rodney.
Very important work here. I think you're breaking new ground every day. So
doing the important work.
You are doing God's work. Okay, so then if you go to MK Ultrasound 723, you can check out David Plate's work. He's got all sorts of amazing sync films. Actually, I think you should also just check out his posts. Make sure you're following him. There's just incredible stuff that he talks about all the time. He's keeping, on top of everything. And also, yeah, if you click on highlights, you can find his sync work, which is incredible. I know somebody last time was saying that they had to watch the Ace of Base Falling Down, and I hope you did, because that one's just one of my favorite things that ever existed, as well as Super Troopers from ABBA with Starship Troopers. Those are some of my favorite ones. But yeah, if there's one that you want to recommend, David.
No, I'd say like if here or on the website, if you know a band, or if you know an album and you know a film well and you like it, that's my best recommendation. Because sometimes the more that you're familiar with something, the more that it kind of things will pop out at you. That, you know, not everybody's lyrically focused. Like, I'm very like focused on lyrics, so I paid a lot of attention to that. Some of these have vocals like around the dialogue of the film, so like in between the vocals I'll turn up the dialogue or the sounds, and some of them don't. It depends on the aesthetic of like what makes the most sense. But yeah, I'd say just like scroll through my stuff, and if there's something you're like, I know that film, I like that film, I know that album, if you know both, check it out. You might get something out of it. Like the one with Fight Club, for example, with Meatloaf's Bat Out of Hell. Like, I have a friend who's like super into Fight Club, the book and the movie, and is super into Meatloaf. So she was just like telling me shit that I watched it, and I was blown away by it on my own, but like I didn't realize like all these like deeper implications that she was like saying like there's things from the book that aren't in the movie, but they're now in the movie with the sync. So she was like, the things that he's speaking to and the things that he's saying are like spoken to in the, like, it's just weird. So like, yeah, there's a lot of examples of stuff like that. But yeah, I'd just say scroll through and see what jumps out.
I really like Nine Inch Nails with Titanic. It's actually just the second part from the second tape on, but that's all you need, really. Like, to me, I think it's the best part of Titanic. Do you really care about the, we're just like unhappy and in love on a boat? No, you want to see people hitting propellers and like flooding. So you got to watch that one.
The timing of that one, the place that it lands, it might appear arbitrary, but it's actually the result from previously back in the day when I had the album on CD and I had this on cassette, and I had to figure out, like, in looping it from a certain point, like where it would land when you comes back around with the second cassette. And so it's actually like, it just so happens that wherever I had started it from, I have to go back. This was junior high when I did this. It was like when the movie was just available on VHS. But I basically, you know, it's on the slap where what's his name? What's the guy's Zane? Billy Zane. Billy Zane slaps oh no, I'm losing her name too. Kate Winslet Rose's face. It's on the slap is when the album happens to start over. So I just like, and the best part of this whole pairing was the final stretch. And so rather than like just put up the whole thing and like hope that somebody has enough like patience and attention to like get through all of Titanic to get to the point where it really takes off, I just shared it from that point. So yeah. Long story long.
I think it's pretty good. So yeah, recommend those. You can find them from David Charles Plate, MK Ultrasound 723, and then Anna Nicole Wordsmith, Miss Nick 06. Oh, try that again. Miss Nick 06 right there. And so yeah, one of our favorite synchronistic humans in the world, spirits having a human experience. You post about codes, symbols, and syncs as they relate to our subconscious. And as a human, is a professional who cares about your soul. So you can find also her work at alignedlifecoaching.info, where she's helping people, including people like ourselves, achieve our goals and feel a little bit better about being alive. Because, you know, it's an admirable profession we respect. Thank you so much for what you do.
Yeah, I'm here. I love you. I love everybody. And I really just want us to succeed, because I know we are all connected. So if you succeed, I succeed, it helps me to help you. Like there is no easy out of this matrix, and it's being powered by our subconscious. And that's why it's such a shit show, is because all of the bullshit and the emotions and the unprocessed stuff that we have going on in our subconscious mind is playing out in the external world. So I really believe that the more we clean up our insides, the better this whole world's going to be.
Yeah, and if you guys think that you need to talk to someone who actually understands this stuff instead of someone who's just like a basic NPC, I would say, yeah, here's your best bet, right? Sorry, Dave.
Do you prefer when we're on here that you get referred to as Anna Nicole Wordsmith, or just like Nicole? Or do if we call you Anna Nicole, or we call you Anna?
I don't care. It's a weird thing. I had a dream the other night where I was like, I'm Anna. No, I'm Nicole. No, I'm Anna.
Careful. That's exactly how the CIA gets you. You have to be very careful about that.
Yeah.
There was the last time that you're on here and your internet fell off, and I wanted to discuss weapons. But you know, we didn't get to today, and that's fine. But like, seriously, what the hell, dude? Like, because I didn't really pay. I saw the poster for it. Maybe I flipped past it somewhere. But like, you were the one who brought attention to the 217 thing, and I was like, they're playing with the 217 thing. I have to watch it, because it's, as far as like, that has Kabbalistic significance and all kinds of things for me, and The Shining. So I'm convinced that I think I said this last week, but I'll just say it again. Like, I'm convinced that what they did with weapons is the same thing that Jordan Peele did with Us, where he took certain like Jungian archetypal parts of The Shining and then just like took those particulars and then like ran with it and made a whole other film. So it's like, it's almost like a sequel to The Shining, at least in an archetypal sense, or at least in a synchronistic sense.
Yeah, well, and The Shining had room 217.
In the book it's 217, in the movie it's 237. And so what if you know the particulars of the symbolism of what room 237 is, like in the book, and how it relates to the movie, like that's what weapons does. Like that lady in the bathtub, like there's like a whole thing going on there. So
like weapons has a lot of connections to alcoholism. Like the reason I took that movie personally is because I was born on 217 and I struggled with alcoholism for years. And that the woman in room 217 was an alcoholic. So
right.
But the weapons movie, a lot of it is really just about alcoholism. Like,
yes. And that's the amethyst thing. So like Amethyst Rockstar from Saul Williams happens to pair perfectly with The Shining and and us like extraordinarily well. But there's like the album's called Amethyst Rockstar. You'll notice that when one of the twins gets killed in Us, the boy uses a big chunk of amethyst to kill her, and then the very last scene of the movie, he's holding the amethyst in the car, like he just like kept it. And it's like, so he just carried with him the amethyst the whole way. Like it's such a little subliminal thing that most people don't catch. But yeah, so an amethyst was protection against alcoholism in ancient. There's the meaning of amethyst, how symbolically where it was said to get its purple hue was from wine of Bacchus or something like.
I had no idea about that because amethyst is the February birthstone, so like 2/17 happens in February, so that's really interesting.
Yeah, I'd give anything for a drink, even my goddamn soul. So yeah, it's like, you can sell your soul if you want it, but that don't mean we'll buy it. Is the lyric from the new wine is dying on the vine from Saul Williams. So like, I don't know, I can entertain intentionality, but it's like, what the hell? Because they're both. That's the whole thing. Is that book especially was like very focused on that alcoholism was what Stephen King was talking about, and then it's still in the film, The Shining, but it's like Kubrick brought it to a whole other level in another place. So yeah, it's deep.
And Geronimo, whose skull is from the Skull and Bone Society, he died of alcohol-related injuries on 2/17.
Oh my God! Oh, that's crazy. Yeah. Did you drink blood out of Geronimo's skull? Yeah, we did a lot of strange stuff.
I swam in Geronimo's hot springs, the sulfuric baths, right? That they have in is it New Mexico or Arizona? I think it's New Mexico.
Oh, how was that?
Pretty rad. not gonna complain, But yeah, I think swimming in sulfur is pretty weird. And arsenic pools. They swim in arsenic pools before the battles, which is pretty cool. Yeah, I would say definitely everyone needs to go through this thread. I'll post this thread as a retweet here so you can find your way to Anna Nicole Wordsmith's posts, because deep rabbit holes. I highly respect your work, man. 2/17 for weapons, 2/18 for the fall of the Boy Scouts. I'm jealous. I really wish we could switch on that one, but all right, thanks everybody. We'll see you all soon.
Okay.
And be safe out there.